gonna cry at this third grade show.
All right.
Probably.
Good evening, everyone. This is December 21st at 7 p.m. This is the regular business meeting for District 96. Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Barsadi?
Present.
Ms. Gunn?
Here.
Ms. Kleiber? Here. Mr. Marhold?
Here.
Mr. Muirhead?
Here.
Ms. Murphy?
Here.
And Mr. Hunt?
Here.
A quorum is present.
All right. At this time, is there any public comment?
There is not.
Okay. Well, then, at this time, are there any proposed changes to the agenda?
Nope.
Okay. And that brings us to the superintendent's report.
All right, and I am excited as the first item, superintendent's report, to introduce Todd Gierman, the principal at Ames School, who I know is going to introduce Alex Rediker and all these children that are here somehow.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan Toy. Good evening, District 96 Board of Education, Dr. Ryan Toy. I've been in education now for a few years, and many years ago, I was an 8th grade math teacher. And I thought about, getting my graduate degree in educational administration and becoming a building principal someday. That's what I really longed to do. So decided to do it. Part of being a building principal is doing an internship. Part of doing an internship is finding somebody who's going to mentor you. So who better to mentor me than my current principal where I was working as that 8th grade math teacher, Glenn. So I go into Glenn's office and I ask him, going back to be an administrator, I think you'd be a great one. Will you be my mentor? He said, sure. Started going to the class coursework. It's time to get into the internship, and Glenn sat me down and said, if you're going to be an effective building principal, there's 3 things you need to remember. And the first one is always recruit and hire the best teachers for your building. Number 2, make sure you always support them. And number 3, while you're supporting them, you need to get out of their way so they can reach for the stars and teach those students everything they know. Like, I got it, Glenn. I've always taken those words to heart. Until that one day this past September, when Ms. Rediker walks into my office. She says, Mr. Gierman. I said, yes, Ms. Rediker, what can I do for you? She said, can we talk for a minute? I said, sure, come on in. She sits down. I said, well, what can I do for you? She says, my 3rd grade class wants to adopt a cow. Now, quite a few years in education again. Luckily, at that time, Glenn popped into my head. And he said to me, Mr. Gierman, did you hire the best teacher? I'm like, of course I did, Glenn. Mr. Gierman, you going to support her? And at that point, it was iffy. I'm thinking, I think I can do this, Glenn. And then he said, are you going to get out of her way and let her reach for the stars and teach those students everything she knows? You got it, Glenn. I'll do this. I had 100 questions going through my head, but I only asked one. I said, Ms. Rediker, how much is this cow going to cost Ames Elementary School? She says, $45. Okay, I think we can make this work. So I said, I'll sign off on it. And now I'm going to introduce to you 7 of Ms. Rediker's stars who are going to show you that Glenn's words of wisdom truly do work. And those stars for tonight's presentation are Eva, Aggie, Finley, Cam, Luca, Emma, and Clara. Welcome, 3rd graders. Let's say our Board of Education. They are going to show you what it looks like when a classroom of 3rd graders adopts a cow. It's all yours, guys. You guys tell me when you want me to click. Here we go. There you go.
We are Miss Rediker's 3rd grade class from Ames, and we adopted a cow.
When we first found out we were adopting a cow, we voted on if it would be a boy or a girl. What do you think it'll be? I'm going to take a vote. Raise your hand if you think it'll be a boy.
I have my hand up.
Oh, we're tallying.
Keep your hand up. Keep your hand up.
Now raise your hand if you think it'll be a girl.
You guys are just cheating.
Aggie, do you think you can tell who won?
Yeah. A girl.
Okay, so girl one, and that's what our class was too, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
It is a girl. So this is what our cow looks like. So her name is Ada. She was born on September 5th, 2022. Her mom's name is Adeline, and her dad's name is Proud. And when she was born, she was 87 pounds and 30.5 inches tall, and and her breed is a Holstein. This is the Burnings. Owners Matt and Natalie Burnings. Location East Dubuque, Illinois. Fun fact: the dairy farm was established in 1973. The farm is almost 50 years old. This is Ada. The first picture of Ada is our last update of her. The second picture is Miss Rediker's dog with our stuffed animal Ada. This is Ada when she was born. Ada was born on September 5th, 2022. Ada's breed is a Holstein. Ada's birth height was 30.5 inches. Ada's birth weight was 87 pounds. Ada's owner is Farmer Natalie. We made a growth chart for Ada so we could measure her height, her height from birth to now. We also made a card that has a lot of things about Ada. We also made a chart to vote if Ada was a girl or boy. Girls won. Our classmate Alyssa drew a picture of Ada, and Miss Rediker put it up on the bulletin board. We get to take Ada home, but it starts at Elazar instead of Eva. But we get to take care of Ada, which is really fun. Not everyone has gotten the chance to take her home yet, but everyone really wants to. This is the bulletin board in our classroom. It says, "Have you heard we adopted a..." Our growth chart. This is how tall she is on December 7th, 39 inches. This is how tall Ada was when she was born. This is me next to the growth chart.
Journal entry. Someone gets to take Ada home every weekend and write in the journal what they did together. Now I am going to read one of the journal entries. Saturday. First, me and Ada played in my basement until my grandparents came, and then played with her, and then they left. So we went back to my basement and played until it was 7 p.m. and then watched Home Alone 2 with my sister and mom because my dad was working. Then I went to sleep. Sunday. Me and Ada woke up. I put her on a pile of blankets to sleep on so she wouldn't get hurt. When I woke up, I got dressed, ate, and brushed my teeth, and made my bed. And I woke everyone up, then went to my sister's back-to-back basketball games for 5 hours, but Ada stayed home.
That is all our narration we have so far on how. Thank you for listening.
I would like to say one more third grade, that's an awesome ending slide. We were doing a dress rehearsal yesterday, and they're like, we need to come up with this slide down, and I thought, what did Mr. Gilbert say? What a moving presentation. Mr. Gilbert, that's a dad joke, no way. You guys really rock. Nice job.
Does anybody have any questions?
How long will she keep growing? And how big will she get? Do you know?
So we actually do not know that yet until our next update.
Okay.
So yeah, we're just waiting till our next update.
How often do you get updates?
Like every couple of months.
Very cool.
Okay.
So that height on the growth chart, that's you got her height from the farm?
Yes, that's because we get updates about her and like how tall she gets and her weight.
So where did you get the idea of adopting a cow?
That's what I wanted to know.
That's a question for our teacher.
So at my previous district, I somehow came across it. I figured that this would be a question I would be asked. And I was trying to think, I'm like, where did I hear about this program? I honestly can't remember. It's a program that's used all across America, and it's completely free. It was the money that Mr. Gearman talked about was for a donation so that the program can keep going, and then we got our stuffed cow, and we got the binded journal and that kind of stuff. And then I found out about it online somehow, and now I've done it every year since I've been a teacher, and the kids love it, and they like getting the little updates. And then actually in April, May, we do a live like Zoom with the farm, and the farmers take us through the farm, and we get to see a live video of our calf, which is really cool.
I wonder if you'd be asking for a trip to East Dubuque. So.
They've asked. They've asked.
Yeah.
And we have a person, and you also have a free hat over here.
What's the best part of having an adopted cow for your classroom?
The cow itself. Yeah, and the stuffed animal in the journal. So, and we also get to take it every weekend, as you heard. So, yeah, that's probably most of the main most of the main ones.
Very cool.
What were you going to say?
I just like the free stuffing.
To have the stuff. Fair enough.
Hat.
Anybody else?
Free hat.
What do you like about it?
Same as you.
Same as Cameron.
Yeah.
You got anything?
What I like about it is just everything.
Aggie?
Same as Finley.
Same as Finley? Love it. Clara, anything to add? Same as that. Just everything.
Eva, did you say something? Yeah, I said the cow itself. Oh, yeah. So those are probably what the rest of our class would probably say. Anything else?
Where is she going to be over Christmas?
Oh, actually, good question.
Well, where does she live? She doesn't live in our classroom.
Oh,
She doesn't live in Miss
stuffed
Rediker's
I think he
apartment.
meant-
That's been asked.
I think he means like the stuffed animal.
Oh, the stuffed animal?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant the actual.
Well, it could be in Miss Rediker's.
It's gonna be.
I'm not sure if it's gonna. I haven't decided yet if it's gonna go home with the next person or if she's gonna come home with me and maybe document some pictures during winter break.
But also, it would be unfair because we only get for a weekend.
So it sounds like
maybe.
I'm gonna take it.
They get for 2 weeks and we only get for a week.
Thank you for letting us.
We'll make sure. Don't worry, she's coming home with me. Just decided.
Does anyone want to see the certificate of adoption?
You want to go show them?
Sure.
Yes.
I would love to see
You can
it.
pass it around the table. Everything works.
Wow, that is so cool. For health and well-being, just like the farmer does. That's very cool.
My third grader at Hollywood is going to be very jealous that they don't have a cow, so I don't know that I
Teacher might want to
will relay
relay
this.
That's what I was going to ask. Are your
Unless he
friends
watches
in the
my
other
video.
Very
classes
cute.
a little?
They're not. It's
Oh, I like the picture.
Just your class, but are they like, man, I wish we had a cow?
Yeah.
Yeah, finally got, we got it started. Yeah, we got it started.
Her well-being is so cute. I love that marking right on her head.
Oh, she is adorable. Might be the cutest cow I've ever seen.
Very good.
Great, let's see here.
They can pick her out in a group of cows.
I don't know
too.
how
That
big,
one's,
Anybody else in the crowd like to see?
how big they actually
Good enough for at least like 6 veal chops.
She's been doing this every year. How big her first cow is. Or does she just not keep? I don't know. That's the third grade, you know.
How cool. She's taking over our meeting.
I also know this group has had a really busy week because they were at the Ames winter
We had the Ames
winter
program
sitting program last
night.
night. Parents
5 or 6 of our closest friends in Ames, right? We performed.
And awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Busy week.
Busy week. So thank you
Wanna
so
say
much
thank
for
you to the Board of
coming.
Education?
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Great job, Sid.
That is adorable.
Yep.
All right, I'm not sure how we can top that, but we can try.
Your kids aren't in 3rd grade, no? Fourth.
Yeah, they didn't do this.
4th grade?
Well, you probably had to have Miss Red.
Yeah, she's new.
Thank you again.
Yes, thank you so much.
I feel like Miss Brackett would be all in on it.
Yeah, maybe it's gonna be a 3rd grade project.
I kind of just want to adopt a cow myself.
Well, I was going to ask, should we put a new business item on the agenda? So the board can adopt a cow or something like that?
Maybe we can adopt her mom and dad.
Yeah.
There you go.
You adopt tigers and leopards and all kinds of stuff.
It's great. Well, I will shift gears over back to the cow presentation.
You know, Martha, I will say, these like live, real life world type things to like bring into the classroom are probably my favorite things.
And
Like,
I asked the principal, we assign the principals, you'll bring student presenters on whichever month, and I don't drive it any more than that, and just their ideas that they really want to make sure you understand what's going on in the classroom and have
it's great.
a snippet. So.
What better way to get people engaged
Yeah.
than like
And you just think like the multiple different things they can learn. Where is East Dubuque? Where is what's you know like there's just so many different things you can learn about that. I think it's really impressive.
Yeah, but I think the principals have started really like, what can I, what's something that the board will find interesting? And, and
how do
that's really
you
on the
top a
classroom.
cow?
I don't know.
Good luck.
Right. I feel bad for whoever. January's student achievement awards. So
Well, that will top the cow.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, right.
All right, I guess we have to move on.
All right, we'll move on. So as you all know, we sent out a family engagement survey, and I've reattached the survey so that you can just sort of refresh your own memory about that. And we now have our results. So I wanted to take a few minutes as part of superintendent's report to share that. This is something that we decided to do under our family and community partnerships goal of our strategic plan. As you know, I'm the goal champion for this particular goal area and facilitate a family community partnerships action team. So I want to share some of this with you. And there were 30 questions. I have all 30 responses here. I'll sort of go quickly through some of them, but want to hit the highlights, and certainly if you have any questions, want to talk with you more about it. So we send out this survey. As you all know, we give 5 Essentials, which is another survey that really looks at families' perceptions, attitudes, along with students and staff, toward the school. This was designed to be a family survey, a little more simplified. I know that we hear very mixed reactions about 5 Essentials. It's a required survey. It's still a required survey. But we really looked at this as essentially a needs assessment to help us understand, really to inform the work also of the Family and Community Partnerships Action Team. What areas would we really benefit from focusing on around this big goal of building a strong support system by engaging families and our partners in the greater community to meet the needs of all students. The use of the survey, the Family and Community Partnerships Action Team has already taken an initial look at it. Our district leadership team has taken an initial look at it. And then our action team will use this for more additional work. So I would say the first sort of layer has been relatively simple so far, and looking forward to digging in more around this. I think you all understand the importance of family engagement, but wanted to share just a little bit about that. Because one of the big ideas we're also talking about is, it's an interesting committee because we have teachers and parents on this committee, and there's sort of how do we help families around their own capacity to engage around being a great partner educationally? How do we help teachers make sure that they're really effective engaging parents in the process? So certainly it's a big idea. It's a core part of our strategic plan, and I know I'm preaching to the choir and mentioning that to all of you. So so what I have here is just a kind of, as I said, a quick overview of the survey. We had 454 responses. We did share, I know some of you had asked, we did share that if let's say two parents in the same family wanted to take the survey, we didn't disallow that. That was certainly fine with us. The best way to search on the number of families that we have in District 96 is to look at unique addresses. So we just verified that again today, and we have about 1,200 unique addresses, 454 submissions to the survey, figuring that In general, it was probably 1 per family, so that puts us at about a 38% response rate. We did ask families if they had children at more, did you have children at more than one school? I think we maybe almost overcomplicated it on that, because there are families, as you could have an early learner at Ames, you could have an elementary student elsewhere, and a student at Hauser. But again, and this was prepared for us by Don White. As you know, we're working with him as a consultant around the key performance indicators of our strategic plan. And he actually wrote this slide, and he said, for the Board of Education and employees to be very proud of the information that is presented here in the survey. We also want to make sure that we don't sort of just take those broad brush, more positive items, that we really dig in around items where people said they weren't sure or where they disagreed. And right away, I will tell you, that was where the Family Community Partnerships Action Team focused right away. Why do you think people are unsure about this, or why do you think people would disagree about that? But in general, there is some very positive information. And one of the first questions is really, is this survey reflective of the community at large? It's probably not fully reflective based on the Illinois report card data, and then the actual report card or the actual information that's self-reported here. So we have the schools, and then we also have breakdown by race in terms of our respondents. This is probably, again, not quite as diverse as our overall student population is. We did send the survey out in all the languages indicated. When families register with us, they indicate if they request information in a different language. Our response rate around that was very, very limited in terms of the responses to the surveys that were sent out in languages other than English. So again, you have race and ethnicity. Again, that's not fully reflective of our community, but it is certainly somewhat of a diverse response. We actually also asked parents about their education level and household income. And again, the reason we do this is also, as we look at survey results, we want to make sure that there's not a group that feels perhaps less connected, or a primary goal around this is to make sure that all families feel welcomed and included, and that their children feel that they're having a successful opportunity here in District 96. So again, I sort of, speaking generally, we had 93% of families say they agree or strongly agree that they have a positive feeling about their children's school. And I am going to share kind of the positives, because they are strongly toward the positive. And again, we don't want to ignore the unsure and disagree portions of this. Families feeling that they have a sense of belonging. We're at 90% of families agreeing or strongly agreeing that their children have a sense of belonging at his or her school. The behavioral expectations for my child are appropriate. This is sort of relates to student discipline essentially, but are their children being treated appropriately? And again, just that sense of appropriate expectations. We asked some questions about child's cultural background, feel that the school's a good fit, a good match, that the activities offered at the school are a good match for my child's comfortable asking for help, that the teaching style and the children's learning style are good matches. We asked this question, this is where you see a little bit responses start to differentiate a bit around childcare, and then there's one about transportation. I kind of click back and forth with these. And this is a question I know that the board has had an interest in around childcare for something like a family parent night. If childcare were provided, would that help families be more involved? So again, more of a mixed response there on both of these items. And I kind of pair these together because these are additional services that a school district may or may not offer. So I find it certainly somewhat interesting. Again, family life and schedules being busy, and family involvement overall. This issue of appropriate communication, comfortable communicating. Again, we see that pop up to higher rates around the strongly agree and agree. And the school appropriately communicates information about how I can be involved. And I think when looking at the numbers again, that was about an 88% level. As you know, we've looked a lot at communication from a district level as well as building level and teacher level, and that's something we're going to continue to study and analyze. Something we also wonder about with those not sure responses. Something not sure is that we're not providing enough communication or information for families about that. The school is welcoming to parents. 82% responded in that strongly agree category. Communicate with people of my culture. I have a sense of belonging. I feel a sense of belonging with my child's school. My child prefers that I not contact, and again, this is sort of trying to get into some of the communication aspects. Involved with parent groups, and I know we also, parent-teacher conferences. Have you visited the school other than parent-teacher conferences? Have you talked about the school with other people? And we tend to look at that as like, that means maybe good things that you're out there sharing information. It can also mean, I know, the opposite of that. Fundraising efforts, that would be more through the PTO or PTAs, volunteering. And my child enjoys going to school. And this one, 92% of our families say that their child enjoys going to school. Lessons are motivating. Here's another bit more of a mixed response, and this is interesting because, as you know, one of our other action team areas is looking at how we report progress to families. And so you see a little bit more of a mixed response, and I think that's something that's a phenomenon or a process that's happening in schools, that schools are really looking more toward improving communications, getting away from grading systems that may feel that they really don't provide as much of the communication that both families, parents and children are seeking in terms of clarity around what they're expected to know and be able to do and how they're doing in that category. So this is actually sort of I'll take it as, I'll call it almost a good news that it sort of informs that this is an area we need to work on, and we are working on it. I believe that the school values the diversity of my child's background. And the administration of my child's school creates a school environment that helps children learn. Again, very strong responses here. Respect for school staff. Teachers at my school respect the children. And then it just sort of in summary is the overall experience for my child is a positive one. And that's at a 93% of agree or strongly agree. So, and then we asked one about the school start and end times, because as you know, we made a shift at Hauser just 2 years ago now, essentially during the pandemic, and that's something we've wondered if that's meeting families' needs. And it seems to be, from this response, it seems to be that people are satisfied with the current start and end times. So we also asked some open-ended questions, and they're right there for you. Most pressing issue facing my child's school, most pressing issue facing the school district. My child's school is best at, Riverside School District is best at. Would be a better place if, or any additional comments. So we have all those comments. They've actually been shared with the principal of the individual school from where the comments came. And then we're asking the principals to really dig into those and really look at themes specifically. So probably come back to you at a committee of the whole when we're talking about family and community partnerships and look at those themes and those big ideas. So there's a lot there. Our next steps with this survey are continue to review and discuss this with Family Community Partnerships Action Team, with our district leadership team. The principals will take this then to their building leadership teams, and again, looking for those themes and big ideas. I know one of the questions we had when we started this process, deciding to do a survey, is would we do it? Again, how frequently would we do it? So we do have the 5 essentials that's required annually. I think we need a little more time to figure out if this is meaningful. I mean, it's very positive. It feels good to see a lot of very positive responses. As I said, we want to dig into where those responses don't feel as positive. I know in talking to our consultant too, he said if you don't find meaning in this, if you don't find some actionable steps from this data, then maybe you don't give it, or maybe we don't give it. Already I think it's probably not an annual. It could be like an every other year, but I think we need a little more time to still digest some of the results and the findings in terms of looking at how frequently. Comparative data, it's another question that's been asked. So as you know, we used open source materials from an organization called Panorama Education. They do make comparative data available, but because we kind of took the open source materials as they're offered, we worked with our own consultant to aggregate, it gets harder to then go back to Panorama and essentially purchase their comparative data. So, and again, across the nation, it's interesting, but I don't, I have my own questions about how meaningful it would be. So again, probably needing more time to think through that, but looking forward to continued conversations. And again, it's, the district leadership team received this information at the beginning of December. Our family community partnerships looked at this in early December. So we really have not had a lot of time with it yet, but we're eager to share it with all of you. We're posting it all. Our plan is to post it all on the website tonight after the meeting. Wanted to make sure that you all had an opportunity to see it, certainly to talk about it if we'd like to talk more. Tomorrow I plan to just send a brief communication to families, thanking them for taking the survey, and then showing them how they can link to the results if people are interested in that. So I do want to thank people that took the survey. I want to thank Panorama Education that makes this information open source and free to school districts. And then Dr. Don White is our consultant who really helped put this data together. So I know I went through that quickly, but there's a lot to look at. You all have it, for sort of future and additional consideration. Are there any immediate thoughts or questions that anybody has?
It's good. It's very positive in terms of the results. I think there's two things to look at, and one is for all these places or questions where we're getting good results, good answers with this strongly agree, is what are people keying in on and what makes it important to them.
Yeah.
And then obviously is for certain items of where we need to improve that actually, I think of the start times. No matter what, I have a feeling we're going to get a diversity of opinion on that, so I'm not sure what would make better results. That's a challenge, and I don't know that there's a good answer, but I've been proven wrong before.
Right, and I know, to comment on just the start time, I'm eager, and I will, actually over break, I have a meeting set up with architect and our traffic engineer, because we know that the separation of times for central house is really important just for managing traffic. And I'm hesitant to think through any other changes really before we understand what we may be doing with the campus changes. Because
I'm not suggesting making any changes on that basis.
Yeah.
The other one that I'm curious about is the not sure items.
Yeah.
Some of those confuse me a little bit
Yeah.
because they seem more either or and not allow for I don't know answer. But
yeah, and that's something that the action team kind of picked up, and they're like, I think one that caught their eye was like, if you're not sure if you visited the school more than parent-teacher conferences, like, is it a poorly worded question? Well, is visiting the school dropping my child off? Is visiting the school meaning, I'm supposed to have come in and had a volunteer experience?
And
so,
that could
I could see how you could get a not sure answer more around the question than, so then there's some that I have to go back and think, did we not ask that question in the most clear way? So.
I did say as a parent, I did appreciate a lot of the questions here because I received one for my older child at a different school, and it was mostly just, do you want your information email or text? And it was very short, and it really didn't ask about my child at all, about how they were doing or how they were feeling. I really appreciated the depth of the questions that we're you guys are at least trying to understand how the children are being responded to or how the teachers are responding to them, and so I appreciate that.
And yet make it simple enough that people will take the time to take it.
Yeah, it wasn't like a 20-minute thing at all.
I think we want it to be 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah, I think that was about right.
And I really want to just again thank the Family Community Partnerships. It's a group of teachers, a group of parents sitting together. We looked at a first set of them, and they're like, some of these are so negative, and even negative toward a sense of as a parent, we're not trying to make a parent feel badly if they don't come to school often, and on the same, we're not wanting to sort of have parents sort of cast judgment on teachers in a survey. So it's, there were just some nice feedback around purpose and wording questions sort of to the positive or how you would respond. And I don't mean swaying them to the positive, but not, there were some, and we specifically honed in on barriers to engagement, family engagement overall, and sort of school, what they called school fit. So we went into some categories through these open source materials because we felt those are areas that's where we really want to understand, because that's where I think we can create more action too and improvements.
Were we able to, or are we able to track the source of where these surveys were submitted from? I'm just curious how successful, perhaps offering them at the parent-teacher conferences, if they were submitted from the district computers that evening, or even by date. Any that got submitted that evening likely happened at the conference versus any that maybe were done by paper. You mentioned very few with the language.
Right. I will say, we had 0 that were sent out in the separate languages. And so when I say very poor response, it was 0. We had 1 paper response. And the principals anecdotally shared that as hard as they worked in our tech team also getting the kiosk set up at conferences, they didn't feel that that was a time and place parents stopped to take the survey.
The majority were just self.
Yeah, and we, as you know, we sent it up, I don't know, Kathy, how many times I started to feel like, okay, we got to thank the people that have taken it, but we're going to ask one more time. Right. So, because every time we asked, we did get a bump, right? So,
Right.
we know that that's an effective strategy, but we were trying to be a little cautious. Yeah. But I don't think otherwise, and Don, I don't think you would know because how the information came in. I don't think we could tell.
That's
Yeah.
like time stamped or date
Yeah.
of submission and, you know.
Yeah.
time.
Sure, the ones that were submitted, the vast majority were submitted, well, all were submitted through Bucks.
Yeah, yeah. But I know Don he said, I can tell you sent another reminder. Like, he knew that, like, we would get, like, it would go up 100, you know, I mean, so that was effective and hopefully not annoying.
And then I had a question on one of the questions, I think it was 26, if you wouldn't mind
Sure.
potentially toggling back. I believe that is the question in relation to,
Is that the one?
no, the one about culture. Yes, that one. I believe
Yeah.
the school values diversity of children's backgrounds at my child's school. So because we also then collect demographic information on race, ethnicity, is there a way in like the Tableau report to see of like our underrepresented families of color, the ones disagreeing, you know,
Right.
not sure, strongly disagreeing. I'd be curious to see how this correlates to the race, ethnicity.
Yep, that's a great question, and I can probably do that.
I was going to ask the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And also because the response rate was so heavily white. I know it is, but it's not exactly representative. I don't know how far it's off, but because
Yeah.
it was so skewed, I would be kind of curious just to make
Yeah.
sure we're not overlooking that because the colors and the graphs look all nice and
Yeah.
it makes you feel good. But
Right.
I almost think it would be good to look at all of it with just all 30 questions.
With
just
racial ethnic
yeah.
breakdown.
Yeah, even by
Yeah.
school or
Yeah.
like just kind of
Yeah.
making sure that you're
Yeah.
not missing some,
Yeah.
you know.
Trends that come out from
Yeah.
that. And then this question too is interesting because it just talks about, it doesn't say like specific to, you know, like it's basically saying,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I think they really do a great job in general for all children, but you know, you can't necessarily speak to the experience of children who underrepresented or
And that's
you
the,
might
and that's the
assume the
population we
district's
didn't-
doing
yeah,
a good job,
right.
but those individuals
Yeah.
may not feel
Right. Or is
as
it not
good.
sure because they haven't heard anything and so they
Right.
don't know how to answer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or that's a.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest not sure
Yeah.
group I
Yeah.
saw
Right.
was
Yeah.
that one. And
Yeah.
So maybe, they just don't really know
Yeah.
the climate, the temperature, but I
Yeah.
appreciate what you're saying. Kind of
Yeah.
looking through all of
All
them
of it.
through that lens.
Yeah.
And 14 is the one that communicates well with people of my culture,
Yeah.
which I think that one was the one that was more specific and this one was more general. And again, because we're so heavily skewed to what I would kind of assume is a similar culture, is that, you know, is the rest of it in that not sure disagree, and that's why it looks so positive, or
And that
just making sure we're interpreting it
right,
correctly.
and that was one of the sort of should I say hypothesis that we went into the survey. We looked at barriers to school engagement. That's a category of questions that Panorama publishes. So that was an area that right away I was like, yeah, we want to look at our barriers to school engagement, right? Because that's the area that this family community partnerships is really about addressing, right? So yeah, it's a very good question, and the survey is a piece of information that's helpful, but it certainly doesn't inform us in every way.
There were the comments. Hopefully, there were some good comments in there.
I'm
that'd be
eager for the
interesting.
principals. You know, the thing I've learned just talking to different groups is that everyone, you know, you sort of view it sort of through obviously with your own perspective. I'm really eager for the principals to look at their themes from their own perspective. I will tell you that sort of the broad overview, people talked about being welcoming and inclusive as a positive, but the diversity was perhaps a weakness. And to me, they kind of go in the same bucket, you know, so that's interesting, and I think, again, we just need more time to digest some of that.
I also think it would be interesting to see, just maybe from my own experience, and maybe I'm telling on myself here, but as my kids have aged throughout, you know, education, I get less involved with, like, the question about, like, does my teacher's style match my kid in
Yeah.
7th grade? I would absolutely say not sure. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of my kid's challenge, like that's their relationship to navigate, and I would only get involved if I needed to. So I'm wondering if a lot of those not shares are also just age related. Are they Hauser parents?
I did wonder about that, yeah.
Because at
Some
this
of those
point, I only
questions.
have children in high school. I'm reading some of these, and I'm like, I wouldn't be able to answer this to you.
And your by school will give you kind of a better
Right, so if you're
indication
looking
of that,
at and you're
yeah.
pulling out Hauser, I think that might be interesting to see if a lot of those.
Second grader, they get the one person or maybe two,
And you're just so much more involved and so much more
And
hands-on.
we really, we cut off so many opportunities for families to be involved because of the pandemic, and then and then it's different as grade levels vary. And one of the things I know the teachers on the Family Community Partnership Action Team are very committed to is how do we create student learning opportunities that engage families. So yes, parent-teacher conferences are very important, and fall parent night and the winter sing, like all these things are important, and it's exciting to see that we are a packed house for the the winter programs, because to me it speaks to some level of family engagement, community engagement. But teachers are saying, how do we, they would love to bring, and I'll say even bring back family reading nights, family math nights. One of the parents on the committee talked about third grade classroom where they were just invited to come in and have their children share their writing. It wasn't a big presentation. It was just come on in, says, we have some finished product with our writing. We're going to share with you our process, and how she just felt that was so meaningful. Just kind of even to hear about the cow. I mean, there was a lot of their academic work in that, embedded in that.
Pandemic, we were, no one was going into
We said, you are not welcome here.
and that's okay. We're keeping safe, but it is refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, some of those not sures might be not sures because I'm not sure and I don't need to know.
Yeah.
They might not be negative. They just might be age appropriate. I'm not sure about that because my 8th grader, that's not a
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I was thinking the same thing on some of those
so I don't know if
questions.
I would, before I started thinking maybe those not sures are maybe negative or ambiguous, they might literally be not sure, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't determine that, but I think if you.
Yeah.
I always find the comments to be the most useful, because regardless of these other 30 questions, the things that are most important are going to come out in the comments.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I also think looking for themes.
Theoretically.
Really important in that, yeah.
And like you said, you might have somebody that's just really irritated with their individual teacher, and we can just, that's a different topic, a different thing, and sort of, for the purpose of this, push that off to the side. But hopefully there's somewhat of a theme there of where we might be able to really latch on continuing to be good at that thing or whatever it is, and then maybe other targeted areas of opportunity we could focus. But this seemed to be, almost 500, whatever you said, 454, that's not terrible. I mean, it's significantly better than we get out of the 5 essentials.
Yes, right. And I think the principal sort of first brush at it was like, this already felt more meaningful to them.
Okay, good.
Questions are a lot better written than 5 essentials, I thought.
It's pretty direct and to the point. Like, do you feel connected? Is this thing working for you that we call school? So, and there's a lot of nuance within it, and there's things that we can't fully understand just from the survey. But it felt as a valuable step, and hopefully to really inform the work of our committee too. Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for taking a closer look, and thanks for your questions. And I will look at the racial ethnic breakdown by question and see what we can bring back. Then the only other thing I had in the superintendent's report was happy holidays to everybody. It is hard to believe it's December 21st.
Right.
So
we just had Thanksgiving.
Right. School just started. So anyway, happy holidays. And as you all know, we have some weather coming maybe tomorrow or the next day. So we're not in school already on Friday, so we don't have to worry about that.
I saw the Hauser match time.
Yeah.
What are they doing for the aftercare children that are there?
So the aftercare will still run.
Okay.
Yeah.
I suspected as much because I thought, how would people be able to switch that last minute? So they're just going for a general, let's try and get as many people.
And I felt it was beneficial to families. I know there are also families looking to get out of town or just get their kids home and start break. And then a lot of it is also, I know we have staff members coming from pretty far away. So so I thought the 35 minutes I think might really help people get ready to head out.
I think that made sense. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I almost sent you a text to see if you were considering any kind of like early close, and I was like, nope. I'm not going to get involved in that. But I was just like,
yeah.
oh,
I
man.
found myself watching,
Especially for the
really
staff and
closely.
everybody that has to wait and then like leave, and they just
Yes.
keep talking about how horrendous the roads are
Yeah.
going to be and everything. I'm just like,
And there's been real mixed reporting on if it's going to hit
Yeah.
at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., or 6 p.m.
And,
So, yeah.
the precipitation keeps dropping.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
So-
Okay.
And I do appreciate our public safety department. I called, I said, what do you, because I think they do have more sophisticated than my best is WGNU, so,
Right. I
but
heard a couple of them joking on the radio this morning about, the 2 to 7 inches. It's like,
yeah, right.
What does that
so
mean?
what? Yeah.
I last heard 5, so, but it's gonna be the
5.
cold and the wind, which is really bad Friday.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be at
Okay.
school,
And
so.
that was convenient that we're
Yeah.
not here.
I know, it does help. Right.
Good planning.
Makes
Good planning on the
yeah,
calendar.
right,
Yeah.
the calendar, right, yeah.
The calendar.
Saw that a year in advance.
Yeah, right.
Paying attention to the Farmer's Almanac?
Yeah. Hadn't thought about bringing all that in. All right, that's all I have, Dan.
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda then is the tonight's consent agenda. Can the board secretary read the contents of tonight's consent agenda?
Yes, sir. Tonight's consent agenda consists of minutes from previous meetings on November 2nd, 2022, minutes from the special committee of the whole meeting we had, the 11/16/2022 minutes from the regular meeting, and the closed session minutes, the personnel report as presented, payables pre-lists as of November 30th, 2022, and December 21st, 2022. And that is all.
All right, is there a motion that the board approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, does anyone wish to have any of the items removed for further discussion? No? All right, then Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Ms. Murphy?
Hi.
Mr. Marhold?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Kleiber?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Riverside Education Council. Don't see anyone here this evening. So we will move on to board member comments. Martha was mentioning the packed houses, at least at Blythe, for the winter programming.
Yeah, I don't think I think this happened since the last time. I went to the, was it the winter concert? What did we call it?
the fifth grade-
Yeah,
the fifth grade
orchestra, band, and choir. That was pretty entertaining. Had some flashbacks to my days.
Hot cross buns.
Sounds a lot different in the audience than it does on the stage, for sure. But that's pretty good. They did a really good job. And, our music teachers, I know we had, what Mr. Meyer was in here. I think it was him that came about a big award that they won or whatever. But they were just very engaging. I mean, that group of teachers, music teachers, they're hilarious. It's just
fun to watch
It was
them.
entertaining, and they were joking with the parents as they were transitioning and everything. It was fun.
Mm-hmm. I can say for Blythe Park, the literally standing room only. I think I started out like up on the staircase going into the auditorium. Was eventually able to sneak over to the side where my family was. But yeah, it was total packed house, and I think I heard somebody ask Casimira at one point, so after the project, are there going to be more seats down here? And I don't think the answer is yes on that. We'll probably have fewer seats, so no.
And Ames was the same, so I saw you at Blythe, and Ames was also packed house, standing room into the hallways. And this is a K3, it used to be K5, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do wonder if it's, again, coming out of the pandemic, people have been wanting to attend things like this, and so everybody attended at once.
Yeah.
So maybe future concerts, it might
Maybe
tail off
do
some.
performances even if you had to in the future. It's so popular.
Yeah, and we've already been chatting about things like 2 performances.
Mhm.
Everybody performs at Hauser. I know Ames tried that a couple of years ago before the pandemic. It's challenging. It's not
It's
the kids.
challenging,
It's not their usual environment.
Mhm.
But
Or maybe it'll wane. Yeah, you never know. So,
Yeah.
I felt like the split programming worked better. Because if it was that packed just for K3, add
we
4 or
never
5 in
could.
there before the pandemic, I mean, you could never find a seat. And the gym is just not that big.
Yeah.
So I thought it was good having the 4th and 5th of all schools kind of get together, plus the students. got to kind of get to know other students from other schools they might not, and then not having as many people jammed into a tiny little space was kind of nice. Cause I was always kind of like, ugh, all right, let's get there a half hour early and sit on the bleachers so that we could actually get a seat, not have to stand. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it may have worked out better logistically and highlighted like the actual learnings from, you know, the music curriculum. I know it was disappointing to 4th and 5th grade parents, myself included, not to have them perform, especially after like, you know, 2 years of not, but it was still a really magical, you know, evening. Hollywood was packed as well, kind of standing room only. And yeah, just thanks to all of our teachers thus far. Happy holidays to all. That's really all comment-wise.
Indeed. Happy holidays to all. And to the teachers and staff.
Yes.
Have
Enjoy
a great
break.
break that's coming up
Yeah.
a little so soon.
Yeah.
One more day.
Right, right.
Almost there. All right. Then that will take us to committee reports. First on the list is the Education Committee.
Nothing this
Nothing?
time. Isn't that amazing?
We'll pass our time to
We'll
policy.
pass our time to policy. Yeah. I agree with Linda.
All right, then Policy Committee.
It looks scary, but I don't actually have much.
Yeah.
It's more like we will, as you know, Press 110 came out, and so we are going to kind of split it up because it's rather hefty, as they tend to have been in this past year. So we will present about half of them at the February COW, and then we'll likely take action on that half at the February regular business meeting, and then we'll follow the same cadence in March and bring the rest forward. But specifically under Policy Committee is the ISB Policy Review Cycle. So we've talked about this a couple times, and it's our New Year's resolution. So in the new year, based on feedback from the board that you would like to, you know, kind of continuously be able to read and better familiarize yourself with our policies, we will follow the ISBA annual policy review cycle. Thank you, Kathy. I think you added it to Word Book or emailed it out, some or both. So we'll follow that kind of cadence and suggestion for what policies to be just kind of reading. It's a little bit more, just by way of reminder, the intent is more familiarization than it is anything else. We utilize press to ensure the 5-year, you know, the 5-year monitoring and review, as well as, of course, any updates that come up either in the language itself or footnotes, references. But it'll be a good opportunity just, you know, to be more familiar with the language, so that when and if these come up in press, it's not the very first time perhaps we're seeing the policy. Maybe it's in the back of our mind somewhere. So we'll just be sending those out via email with hyperlinks to the the relevant board policy section. So I think January is like section 1, 3, and 8 or something. And there's a rhyme and reason as to why ISBA kind of recommends certain ones at certain times of the year based on typical yearly board work. And then we can...
And we won't attach them all in the agenda like we do for a true press
For a true press,
review.
no, it'll just be like,
yeah, chapter,
this month the
section.
board read these
That's much more
policies,
digestible.
any update, you know, were there any questions or any big, I don't know, glaring. So we'll try that out, and, you know, ask and you shall receive. So that is what we're doing.
For some of the bigger sections,
Yes.
since we do have blanks, well, I know, okay, so there's
Yes,
the
there are
one-year
blank
plan,
ones.
which I think from your,
That's the one I think we, as opposed to the hybrid
those are the
2-year.
mandatory, right? Oh, that's, okay, so it's either or. It's not, you have to do these every year and then you do these other ones in the off.
That's the
year.
hybrid, that's the one, there's like a plan where you can attack all of them within 1 year, or there's a hybrid plan that's stretched out over 2 years.
Oh, I see. It's either do this or do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
gotcha.
wondering about that. Good.
Yeah, it can be it's a little confusing, but it's on the left. It's just the yearly one, which would hit all of the sections within the year. And yes, you're right. There's like a month of downtime, so
Yeah, just more like a couple of the sections are really small. It's like 4 or 5, you know, 4 ... whatever. There's like 4 or 5 of them. Then others, there's like 30 of them. And some of them can be rather lengthy. So I don't know, as we're looking at those, do we want to try to divide those up, or
I think you should try this first and then decide. You know what I mean?
I would too, because they, it's also the way the attorneys do it for the ISBA.
Yeah.
They kind of, there's a reason why they chunk them like that, whether it's topic or, so yeah, I think we should try it before you upside down it again. Just let's see if it works. And
Try the annual.
yeah,
I'll get
just
ahead
to
of
see
it.
how it goes.
It's not,
See how difficult.
it's not super engaging reading.
It's just,
So,
and again, it's for your own
No, it's
knowledge.
not, but-
And there will be,
It's
you know,
very
ironic.
engaging. I was
Very
on the policy
engaging.
committee for a while.
It's really good.
Some plot
You
twists,
miss it,
twists
right?
and turns on occasion.
Not saying it's not important.
There-
It is
Some of it is quite
important.
dull.
There might be times too where
Yes,
there's
very.
overlap with some of the press stuff, so we'll try
Yeah,
to
okay.
make note of that. This go round, it actually works out. Neither sections 1, 3, or 8 are really come up in press. 110. But yeah, we're gonna try it out and just beginning in January. So we'll start with those sections.
So are we doing option 1 then? I assume
Yeah.
we're gonna try option 1? Okay.
I just
think
might,
that's what it's-
I might start preparing for May and April. There's a lot to the students section.
Oh, yeah,
So,
You can do it.
oh, I can do it. I just gotta, yeah, I could do it. I can do it.
Stephanie, I am
Open mind.
still somewhat flummoxed by option 1, option 2, and then hybrid.
Well, let me see, because
And it's,
I think
is
you said
hybrid
option
a
one.
third option? Is that really what hybrid is intended to be? But hybrid allows you to,
Right.
the way it's laid out
Second.
here.
Attached here,
Which one
yeah.
is?
Two options.
option 1,
Option 1 is
So,
there, you
okay,
go through everything
yeah,
in 1
so
year.
option
sorry.
2 is
I
the
didn't see
2-year
that.
plan.
Right.
My thing's being weird.
Okay.
Option 2 is the 2-year plan.
2-year, and then there's
And then if
hybrid.
you, I think I believe my understanding is the hybrid approach. Oh, I see what you're saying, because it
Yeah.
says annually and then,
Mhm.
but the hybrid approach annually, it does not, it doesn't hit all of the sections.
Because I think the hybrid approach is the annual side, the
Plus-
left-hand side is mandatory based on reading all the
Oh, I
asterisks at the
see.
bottom.
Mhm.
These
Yeah.
you must
Yeah.
by law review these every year, and then the others, the right-hand side is year 1 you do these, year 2 you do these. So you basically split it in
Oh, so
half,
it's a
but
combined.
you got to do the mandatory ones. That's kind of that's what I was saying. So I don't really care.
Yeah, I think can you just
yeah,
scroll back?
go
I'm
to-
as long as
sorry.
we're doing it
Thought
on
the
a
year
more
one.
Yeah, we're just
consistent
gonna
basis.
we're gonna try option 1,
See how it
1-year
one-year
plan
plan.
to see how that goes, starting
Okay.
with January.
Okay.
And if
Yeah.
we feel that's not working, we could explore then option 2 or the hybrid model.
Once we start reading them too, a lot of them are very familiar.
Yeah.
Like, we've
Mhm.
read through a lot of these through the policy, so I
And they don't
think
change much. so-
No,
Right.
I think if you, it's not like you have to read word for word.
Yeah,
on
you're
some
not
of
really
them, 'cause you've already
scouring
done
them
that.
for the updates, like we're relying on press, for
Yes.
all of that. It's more for your
Knowledge.
own
Awareness.
Yeah.
familiarization.
Well, we'll see how it goes for review. I guess I could definitely see if this gets a bit overwhelming, or if it gets
Yeah.
a bit where these things
Then
start to run
shift.
together and
Yeah.
doesn't make as much sense if we're reviewing too much at one time. I could see maybe we'll take this in smaller chunks, but we'll see how it goes.
But remember too, there's 7 of us, so
Oh, okay, yeah, I wasn't thinking of that in that regard.
unless you want to do them all, no.
Honestly, that's kind of how I was taking it. But if it's something that we're divvying up amongst us all, maybe that makes it more manageable.
But I think, Stephanie, you had commented last meeting too, and I think it's true that with the press partnership,
Yeah.
we're really very current. You review a
Mhm.
lot of policy over the course of a year. I don't think this will come up as very foreign or out of the realm of what you are already familiar with.
We have
Yeah.
those special question ones where
Yeah.
you're offered a choice. There's so many boilerplate ones, like Linda was saying. They're going to
Mhm.
sound familiar. So I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, it's just routinely putting the policy in
Mhm.
front of board members. Because
Right.
Because that's what we're,
That's
on a
the main
yearly
job,
basis,
right?
because
So-
it might
is
not
to-
I know.
otherwise come up,
Yeah.
or
Right.
you might not look at it for 5 years till it's up in a press.
I thought it was good that when you went to the conference, you were like, wow, we were actually doing so much with policy and some aren't, because we are used to it, but I didn't realize some are not doing as much as they
Yeah, if they
should.
don't subscribe to
that don't, if you
press
don't use the
plus or-
press, I mean, that would be a burden, so.
And like you said, it's awareness. Hey, go read these, bring questions, not
Sure.
let's review every single one
Right.
on the
Right,
table.
that's
So
all
the-
it is.
So it'll be fine. We'll be good.
I'll be ready. You'll be okay.
I'll be
You'll
okay.
all
We'll
be
be okay.
Yeah, those, yeah, that's the goal. Awareness, familiarization, you know.
Talking myself
You
off
can
a
do
little
it.
bit.
Talk yourself.
Thank you.
I'm here to encourage. Our last few months, we're gonna encourage.
That's right.
And then the other one, the one that's being odd, the Open Meetings Act designee. Oh, so from the conference, I mentioned this as well, I think, at our last meeting, something that came out of the training with the, what did public access?
Public access counselor, yeah.
counselors,
Yeah.
was a recommendation, obviously, as board members, within the first 90 days, we know we are all required to undergo the Open Meetings Act OMA training, and that is all, very visible, the dates in which we completed that on our district's website. But there was also the suggestion to appoint an OMA designee that would undergo the training annually, and typically that is either the superintendent or assistant to the superintendent. In this case, I believe Martha, you felt that was something that you wanted to take on. We also spoke with, his name escapes me again.
Brian Crowley, the
Yes,
attorney.
who
Yeah.
also thought it recommended it as a good practice. So again, everything we're doing is completely aligned with what we need to be doing. This was just additional best practice. But then that also brings up the question, there was the suggestion of also having a board member as, I guess, I don't know if a secondary designee that would also undergo the training yearly in the event that our annual one
Is
is
not
not there when we're discussing certain topics where maybe Martha's not at our meetings.
So the policy chair?
No.
I was gonna say, I can't remember when Martha's not been here, but.
I think
Contract discussion.
I think it's about an hour. You said.
Yeah,
Attorney?
probably, yeah, maybe not even. It's
Excuse me.
The president.
It's a
I'm
very poor,
happy
it's
to.
very poor visuals, but it's basically
Poor
it's
visuals.
a slideshow. You have to go through and read the
Okay.
rules and then read the different
that's not too
scenarios,
bad.
and so it's and I think even when I went back into it, it's like
Yeah.
I think we're very compliant.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to send me the links, I'm happy to take a look.
Sure. Great.
Do they give you like a 5-question quiz and you gotta
Yeah.
get at least an 80%?
There are some vignettes where you have to like agree,
Yeah.
disagree. I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
Just to
yes,
like
yeah.
apply your learning and see if you're paying
Yeah,
attention.
but you're not really being scored. But
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But they'll tell you if you did it wrong.
Oh, this time of year being what it is, I've gone through several rounds of annual training at work, so put one more on there.
Okay, I do not have anything further under policy committee.
Okay. And then that will take us to facilities committee.
We met earlier this last week.
To preview the bids.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so our business is now the old business that is coming up later in the agenda.
Okay. And next is personnel committee.
So last meeting, I had made a comment about potentially bringing something. The school lunch program is that thing. We just hadn't decided if we were actually going to move forward with it or not. I don't think we had anything else since we last met. That was pretty much the main topic. So it's been pretty quiet, I suppose, recently. So I will yield my time for the new business discussion.
All right, sounds good. And last but not least is finance committee.
So before I yield my time back to the new business, just to give everyone sort of a heads up, I mean, we all know the cameras are aging here, so we're looking to get new cameras. Don is going to be submitting an RFP going out. We're also going to be looking at not only the cameras, but then also the and Don, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the access control. Thank you. Yeah. looking at access control and how we can tie that in together. So
like security cameras, is that what you're referring
yes,
to?
right.
Or- okay.
Right. And so the ones we have are dated, very dated, so we're looking to
Mhm.
upgrade those. And also possibly see where we can possibly get some synergies, because sometimes new cameras today can do the same job as, one camera today can do the same job as 2 older cameras.
Mhm.
So that should be coming to, we should start getting results back, I'd say maybe February, about the February, so about that time.
And it would come to like committee of the whole for
Right, exactly,
discussion
right,
and
yeah,
then
the
future
discussion.
board action.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that's going to be a decent expenditure? I have no idea how many cameras we actually have.
We really have to get
Yeah.
the bids in. The bigger question is, sort of when can we do it? That's, ideally, we'd like to do it in the summer if we could, but given like what the schedules are, and more specifically what supply is, because it's difficult to get supplies right now
Okay.
for a lot of this equipment. So
Okay.
we could very well be looking at 24 for this.
All right. Well, then that takes us to old business. That's been mentioned a couple times. First item under old business is the Blythe Park renovation bid approval. Is there a motion that the Board of Education accept Vistara's recommendation and approve the contract for $3,535,800 to Troop Construction as presented?
So moved.
Second.
And Ramesh is here to provide some additional background.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everyone. So this was actually an excellent bid, and it's highly recommended that we proceed with this project, because if you recall, we were in a really tough market. The project was extremely complex, consisted of 3 main components, not just the repurposing of the auditorium. We also had the parking lot and the boiler project. Each one is a standalone project by itself, and the initial estimates that we had run on the project estimated the project at approximately $3,650,000. And when we put the project out to bid, we were in a really tough market. We had just gone through the Hauser project a few months before that, which had come in over budget. And when we looked at the numbers on this one, we received 7 bids, and 5 of them were under our budget, and 2 were over. And we got a good range of contractors, large contractors, small contractors, and we did a deep analysis of the bids received, and we went with Troop Construction as they panned out as the most responsive low bidder for the project. And at this time, I'd like to recommend Troop Construction for the project. If you have any questions, please ask.
I think I saw in the documentation of the bid that there was one company that actually came in lower but was taken out of the bidding for several reasons.
That is correct, because we reserve the right as part of our public bidding process to analyze every bidder, and that includes recommendations on the references, how have they completed the projects that they have been previously awarded, whether they finished on time, whether they have liquidated damages, whether they've had issues with labor. And in all those cases, we ran into trouble with Integral Construction. And the second lowest bidder, Troop, was below our budget. So, for the district, it was a win-win situation. We're getting a contractor whose references panned out and is still below our budget. And that's why we made the recommendation for Troop.
To your point, Dan,
Mhm.
all bids that we receive are always, as Ramesh noted, under the condition that it's the lowest responsible bidder. And with the bidding documents, there is a supplemental contractor qualification statement that lays out those criteria. So we have the documentation and the rules of the game, as it were, and fully support Ramesh's recommendation and follow up with regards to those 7 bids and the bidders.
I'm in total agreement. This other bidder sounds like there's some issues attached with it. I just out of curiosity, though, I was wondering how much of a difference there was between that bidder and the one that's now primary.
Almost $200,000. But as I said, the recommended bidder is still below our budget, and their references panned out very well. We could always have gone with the lowest bidder without, disregarding the references, but then we have a very tight schedule. And if this contractor had run into trouble, we would have had no school opening, we would run into other issues, and additional costs could come into play. So we always go with the lowest responsive bidder. That's always our recommendation.
No, I don't personally want to approve something with poor references or any of those issues, so.
Agreed,
Yeah.
agreed. We've had issues with
Yeah.
contractors in the fairly recent past, so, yeah, no, I understand.
And Dan, to get to the more, once, assuming we approve the bidder, the bid also includes a general allowance of $60,000, so that is money that is there in the budget to address unknown issues when you open up the building. And if portions of that money are not used, that gets returned to the district. And that's a practice we've been following since we've been working with Ramesh.
Right.
Right.
And it's been rather successful.
And so the bid is to do the whole thing, because we did the alternate part, and so the way I'm reading this recommendation is we are gonna go ahead and do the parking lot
That's
in
right.
addition to, and not carve that out.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the new boiler.
And the boiler.
Oh, that was part of the alternate? Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know, this is not, this is the alternate, the boiler is a significant piece of the project, and.
Yes, the
is
boiler
very
is part of the base
necessary.
bid, the alternate is the parking lot.
Yeah, because we weren't sure with costs and all that kind of stuff going on.
Right,
if that
if
was
the
gonna
costs had
get
come in higher, we
astronomical.
would
Yeah.
still have recommended the repurposing of the auditorium and the boiler. That was one integral project. I mean, to break them out, we would have ended up spending probably 10 or 15% higher.
Yeah.
So,
And I think the alternate, the parking lot bid seems pretty reasonable, because I have a number of 600,000 in my head from like a year or two ago. So that was
That's
actually
correct.
kind of surprising. It's still,
Right.
with energy and everything going up,
we trimmed the project, we brought it, we brought it back in, we had discussions with DLA. Got it.
So with that new boiler, is there any potential for energy savings or efficiency over time? or-
Absolutely. One of the big advantages of when you do any of these mechanical upgrades is you always go with the most efficient system that's practical for the project, number one. And energy efficiency in boilers, for example, has gone up enormously over the last 15, 20 years. So our old boiler, which was 15 years old, and what we're getting now, the energy efficiency, the difference will be about 10 to 15%. It all depends on how you run the controls, but the unit itself is 10 to 15% more efficient than what the old system was. There are other alternates too that we looked at, which are super efficient, but they cost a lot more, and the layout of our boiler room doesn't really support it. So we went with this one. You can go with smaller units, miniature units that come on only when you need them, but you need a lot more space, maintenance is higher. So we looked at it and we said that this is the most efficient system to go with.
And it runs off of natural gas, I assume?
Yes. Yeah, no change in the process.
And costs are not going down, natural gas, so yeah, I'm all for efficiency and machine.
And we've had the repair team out a few times.
That's
on
correct.
that boiler.
That's part of the reason too why we are
As
recommending.
recently as early this morning, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna
I'm
add.
glad your kids were in school today, Dan, because it is, yeah, and our maintenance team, they're doing a great job keeping an eye on it. We are carefully monitoring, but
But
we've
it's
had
time.
2 days where there's been like an early morning,
Yeah.
heat hasn't kicked on yet, so, yeah.
Sounds like a good thing we're
Yeah,
closed Friday.
Yeah, and I think we'll get through the winter, but I'm glad to know that it's on the replacement list. Great.
Probably an irrelevant question related to the bid, but with the new boilers, can you turn them on and off? Just like with the variability, I know it always gets a little tricky. Do you turn it on because we have a couple cold days, but then it gets hot again? You can't really.
No, not
The
really.
old ones you can't turn
No,
on and
you
off. The
can't
new ones you
because
can't do that
it's
either.
a hot water system.
Yeah.
So you
Once
have
it's on,
to
it's
keep.
on. Yeah.
No, you have to keep it running to keep, so you can ramp it up quickly. Otherwise, it takes about 3 or 4 days to start up.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
not an
so-
air conditioner, right? Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if they did anything to engineer those differently than they used
I
to.
mean,
but-
in a new school, yes, you can. You can do a lot of things, but in existing school, there's a lot of revamp of controls, and you have
okay,
to go with
all right.
digital controls that can be controlled from a central unit. And to do that right now is really cost prohibitive
Okay.
for us.
One thing that I mentioned to Martha recently, and it's been something that I've been meaning to bring up. I know that from the way we reach the school, from the way the school is configured now, to get into the school. If you're coming, I think it's from, where am I? I can't really tell you the directions of it. From
Which door are you going into?
The back, I'd say the back.
the back, yeah. So where the gym is, it's the side where the gym is. It's
Northeast.
is that northeast? Okay, yeah.
Probably.
I get totally turned around. But,
If you're coming into the auditorium side,
yeah,
from
exactly.
Leasley, that would be
Mhm.
the northeast.
Right. Well, I guess originally the way the school's laid out and to be entered, there are doors on both sides. So normally everybody coming from the direction I'm coming in would be going up that path and into the doors there. Now that's not how we're having it in the morning. Now those doors are locked. We're coming around the side, and I'm noticing it's not only me but everybody else. We're kind of, the parents on that one side are beating a path through the school grounds because the alternative is to walk big triangles worth of cross sidewalks that are laid out. And I have no idea the expense, but I did wonder, would that make sense at some point to have a path, that's essentially being beaten into the ground now by people walking that on a daily basis?
It's something to look at. Those colloquially, those can be called cow paths or goat paths.
Yeah.
And you look at what the most popular route is to a door, and after the people have spoken, as it were, you build a path there.
It's just something something that I thought should be mentioned, because it's definitely something that it's a path I'm walking every morning, and a path a lot of others are as well.
And if it gets muddy or something.
Yeah.
That's what they did at U of I with the quad. They waited for all the students to go, and then they laid the sidewalks, and they're still there. I see what you're
that how
saying.
they
Does make
created all
sense.
those paths? I never knew that.
Yeah.
I grew up there and I never knew that.
That's always been a rumor, yeah.
Well,
I don't know
that's
how.
what I've seen the pictures of the people walking on the grass.
That makes sense.
The
I mean,
historic
you're
ones.
going-
But anyway, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, again, this is a fairly recent change because previously
Because
all
they-
the doors were accessible.
Right, but now they
Now
locked
that those
it.
doors on that side of the building are closed in the morning, people have to find a way to get around. And things being as they are, you've got your kids, you're out in the cold, you want the shortest possible route. You don't want to walk down to a corner, come back around, and add an extra few minutes to your time.
I don't think you're getting it in here, Dan.
No.
That's
Well,
All
I
right,
know.
let's get back to
I
the
know.
bid.
It is something
Yeah.
that I wanted to
I hear what
mention.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the bid that is up for a vote?
Facilities Committee has heard you, and now we're good.
Fair enough.
No further questions from me.
All right. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Merholt,
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi,
Aye.
Mr. Muirhead,
Aye.
Ms. Gunn,
Aye.
Ms. Clyburn,
Aye.
Ms. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Hunt.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Jerry, thank you.
All right. And on our next item under old business, we have the summer maintenance project MOU at Hollywood Tuck Pointing. Is there a motion that the Board of Education authorize the architect to provide professional services for the masonry repair project at Hollywood Elementary School as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this?
This is a MOU for the architect it's all in the board book, but this is tuck pointing and lintel replacement at the school. And this is for $36,400, and this includes design through construction documents and bidding. And so our anticipated construction start for this work would be June of 2023, and then it would be completed before the school year starts again.
This is the same MOU we've seen prior. There's no changes.
Correct. Were there any questions?
Isn't
Sherry, sorry.
364,000.
Well, 364
No, I
is
mean
the
for
estimate
whole-
for the
yeah.
construction
The whole
work.
construction, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
The estimate, yeah.
10% of,
Yeah, 10%, I know, I'm just
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, I
the
had a
approval is
recollection we'd done tuck pointing work or similar work at Hollywood in maybe the past couple of years. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but
No, you're right. We did it last year,
okay.
actually a few months ago. But that was based on the initial review that the architect had performed of the project about 8 months prior to that. But if you recall, during our summer project, we noticed that there were limestone movement that had taken place, and we had to do some emergency repairs just before school reopened. The problem with the masonry is that it can change fairly dramatically if there's a leak or a crack in there, and then you have a cold front that runs through, expansion takes place, and the masonry starts to split. So we fixed that at that time in July of this year. But I did a further investigation of many areas that we had not addressed, which are behind plants, for example. And we looked at areas where the masonry had moved. The chimney, there's a smaller chimney next to the gym out there, and that's got bricks that have moved since the last examination. And I reached out to the facilities committee and the architect and said, we need to get a fix that works for 5 to 10 years, which means 100% tuck pointing, not selective. Last year's work was very selective. It was a limited budget that we used. We ran through emergency funds to run that project through. This time we're addressing entire facades. From start to finish, we're looking at every brick that's there, and we'll regrout it, recaulk it, and reset it. It should be a 5 to 10 year fix at the very least. And that's why we felt that we address it. We're going to come back to this for at least in the short term. It's important that we take care of this one school at a time, if that's what it requires, rather than do a $5 million project. We said we'll address a smaller chunk, but an entire school.
Now, you said a 5 to 10 year fix. I mean, is there a long-term fix of some sort that's...
What happens in older buildings is it's very hard. I mean, we're not replacing brick unless we see it's moved and it's come off. Yes, we would replace that brick. But over time, brick also tends to fail. It gets crushed, it moves, and so that's why I say on an older building, it's always safe to say the good fix is 5 to 10 years, but you have to inspect it. Every couple of years, you'd come back and take a look at it and make sure that you can touch up. That's minor work. We can do it under maintenance contracts. But this one, right now, there's just too many open locations based on observation. We said we have to address it as an entire building, entire facade. Because previously said 300 square feet, 500 square feet. No, not now. We're going to grind out all the joints and repoint. That is the right way of doing it for the long term.
I'm sure I said this last time because I live in a brick building, but I would really appreciate you trying to do it properly, to do the whole thing, because it's just so much better result, and it's better quality, and it'll look better.
And it's easier to also get the contractor to come back, because then you'll say that you were supposed to do 100% of this, and why is it? Otherwise, right now you'll say that was not part of my scope.
Right.
Right. You see, this way you essentially you can actually buy a warranty. The warranty makes sense this way. The previous contract, no, because they'll say that it leaked from somewhere else, and that caused the brick to fail.
Makes sense.
After the bid, does that turn into a maintenance contract with that same vendor, or do we use a different company for like maintenance stuff?
For the warranty period, yes, it'll be the same contractor. But overall, no, it won't. We could use someone else. I mean, we've used Anderson previously fairly successfully to do emergency fixes. But in this case, for the warranty period, we would definitely go back to the successful bidder.
Because that becomes part of their contract.
Yeah, there were, yeah, right.
It's a
Well,
given.
I wasn't sure if, like, after that, if it makes, like, does it make sense to use the same company on a maintenance schedule? But, like, because if we're gonna do it one school at a time, I'm assuming each one of them has to go out to bid, and then you got changeover in contractors and stuff. Is there any way to kind of cinch that process up, or not really?
The problem.
You pay attention to the quality of their work, and
Don't use them
after
next
that
time if you don't like
warranty
it.
work, after the warranty is expired, then how many callbacks do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And how responsive are they?
Mm-hmm. And if they bid on the next one and we have issues with them, we can kind of reject them for.
You evaluate the quality
yeah.
of their work, and how are they behaving appropriately on just the administrative side. As Ramesh noted, are they paying the right wages?
Yeah.
That's huge, and that gets into federal issues as well.
In this project, one advantage is that we are going to get masons. That's it.
Right.
We're not doing roof work, we're not doing windows, we're only asking, so that you're essentially talking straight to a contractor. Unlike last summer, we did roof work, we had multiple contractors, multiple trades. This one won't have that. It's all masons who bid this project.
If this project happens over the summer, does that mean that Hollywood is not like,
It's
accessible?
off limits, yeah. We've already talked to Brookfield Parks and Rec
Okay.
and offered them
Look at
Ames
that.
School.
Oh.
Because as you know, we have a
Okay,
intergovernmental
that-
agreement that, so I guess we had talked about the Facility Advisory Committee that
We did.
reached out to them a while back, and I said, I realize it's not in the community of Brookfield, but, you know, it's a District 96 school, and they were fine with that. They
Okay.
were pleased to be offered that option.
I think I also asked this last time, but the large-scale mosaics on the wall, my understanding is those were put up to never, to never come down. So I'm just curious if there's been more insight into that.
It's a difficult subject, I mean, because some people like it, some people don't.
Who doesn't like it?
We'll
But we will
You
definitely
love
save
the
it. I
students.
mean, our plan is not to take it down as such. We will work around it.
It will be something for the architect
Yeah.
to think about and give recommendations to, and then they have to call masons they know for ideal ways to address it in a way that's cost efficient and doesn't remove them or wreck them.
Yeah.
It's part of the design process essentially.
Right.
It's a fun problem for them.
I was gonna say, yeah.
I mean, contractors
Yeah,
walk the
challenge.
site, I mean, may not show in the drawings, but they walk the site, they're gonna come back and ask us, like, is this part of the contract? We say, yes, but how will we work with it? We'll have to sit down, some of it is fairly manual, it's labor intensive, but it's doable. It's not massive, but it's doable.
So how long have those been there, the mosaics been up there?
Couple years.
3 years.
Yeah.
I watched them go up. I want to say 3 years.
So it's kind of a school
It's
climate
pre-COVID.
issue,
So
worth
isn't it?
10%
Like,
higher.
Yeah, it was like an artist in residence project that they
Right.
did.
Yeah.
It's kind of for the school to decide what they want to do.
Right. And there was like a memorial butterfly garden there, and then the mosaics.
Remember that, yeah.
Enhance that.
We good?
MOU.
Any further questions?
Back to the MOU. Getting off tangent here. Come on, Linda, keep us in shape.
I'm wanting to, but I'm just trying to. Good.
Okay. All right, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Clyber?
Aye.
Ms. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
And Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Okay, that brings us to new business. And the first item under new business is the school lunch program considerations for 2023-2024 school year.
Yep, so we have so I told Martha I'd kind of lead the charge on this one since it's related to a staff member retiring and we got to figure out what to do about it. It's kind of an important role. And so I think basically we have two options. We either find a replacement person to run what we're currently doing, or we find a service that could maybe expand what we're doing. In Jim's memo here, it kind of articulates there probably would be an advantage of looking for a food service program to, just from like a cost perspective, we actually think that it might save us some money by doing that, only because there's like a floor on the expense here where we have to provide lunches to free and reduced folks. So like there is some expense to doing just that. And right now we don't have kitchens or fully functioning hot food programs or any of the equipment or kitchens or anything at the other schools. So we only do it here at Hauser, and Central takes a part of it because of Hauser and all that kind of stuff. So,
And I just do want to interrupt. We do provide free lunches to our children that qualify for free and reduced lunch. It's just it's a cold bag lunch,
Yeah.
which isn't reimbursable under the federal school lunch guidelines. Yeah.
right. So all of that's prepared here and that's kind of sent out, but we can't get reimbursed for it. So by having a program that can officially kind of accommodate those schools, they can help us account for it and bring in basically reimbursements that we should be getting that we're not getting. So we're eating that cost basically. So we, Jim and a few others have been talking with Quest Food Management Services, who currently does 94, 95, and 208.
Yep.
I think
In
that
Westchester, if you're interested.
Westchester, yeah. So a lot of our neighboring districts, and so we had them come through, do a walkthrough, and they said facilitating a district-wide lunch program was completely feasible. There might be some costs. We might need warming trays or something like that. But essentially what's in front of us here is basically a test window to just get them in and really have them go through the program, have them work with Judy Stanky and evaluate what we're doing, maybe possibly come up with some recommendations of doing things differently, possibly recommendations of how we can lower costs, things like that. But even just as it stands and basically what they've told us as of today, Jim has run some numbers, and we actually think we're going to come out a little bit ahead, which is kind of interesting because that's how much of the cost that we're actually eating. We actually think that by expanding it, it'll cost us less money overall.
Because it then becomes, everything is eligible for reimbursement.
Everything is eligible for reimbursement.
And then hot lunch would also be offered to families who don't qualify for the free and reduced lunch at a reasonable cost.
Yeah.
Like it is at Central Hauser now.
I'm sure you talked to, RV in Comerica. Are they happy with that company?
Yeah, they are. I think they're happy with the service. I know we've sort of chatted a little bit, I think, sort of mass production food.
Yeah.
People are
I mean,
very
right,
excited
it's not-
about that.
My daughter is
Yeah.
familiar with their product at RB.
Yeah.
They're a wonderful logistics company.
But it's a convenience item for families, and
Gotcha.
even at Central Hauser, that's the reality.
Okay.
So we're hitting three things here. We're meeting our requirement to provide lunches. We are figuring out a replacement for our cafeteria manager, and we are potentially expanding. If we go this model and this works out through the end of the school year, then it's how do we set up for the fall. So just to be very clear, we're not expanding lunch now or
Right.
in with this contract or any of that. It's how would that happen? Let's get in, let's evaluate the situation a little bit more in depth. Let's figure out what that structure would look like, and if we move forward with it, we would do that for next year. There would be a cost to non-free and reduced. We'd have to figure out what that cost is. It's actually fairly modest from what we
Yeah, I think
that
it's
it is.
Jim. I think it's like $3.75 now for a Central Hauser lunch. Like for somebody to purchase an individual school lunch.
Yeah, I think it's close to $4.
Yeah.
Call $4.
Yeah.
And you can choose, we think you can choose to opt in, opt out. We haven't gotten that far with it. That's part of this evaluation process. And
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
So you don't do it every day?
so not everybody has to participate.
Not
If
everybody
you don't
has
want
to
to buy
do
the
it.
lunch, you don't have to buy the lunch. It's an optional program, just same as it is here. I think is how
at Central Hauser.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
Right. You hold money in account and then.
You either use it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the adoption at Central Hauser is probably on the less than 50% now, I would guess.
I
could be wrong.
think so. Jim, I don't know if you have those exact numbers on, the participation rate was actually lower than I thought it would be, and I don't remember the exact number.
I don't have them with me, but yeah, it's not, especially at the other schools where we have to deliver it. At Central Hauser, I think it was maybe 25-30%. It wasn't, it was kind of surprisingly low.
Mhm.
I know I can personally speak that my kids never use it because they said they didn't have time to wait in line to eat it.
Yeah.
So I think that was, it's not that they weren't sometimes interested in it.
Yeah.
It's just that, I don't have time, and the little ones obviously go first, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. But, so they just bring something.
Yeah.
But it kind of has to do with the day schedule too.
And maybe that's something, Quest, this sort of consulting management model for this,
I'm hoping
this
they can
rest
solve
of the
those
school
things.
year, as Wesley said, that won't provide lunch at the other schools, may help us look at some of those efficiencies. And I've heard that too, Sherry, that sometimes kids don't want it because the lines are too long.
Yeah, because I've got my lunch, but I didn't have time to eat it, we had to go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So that would be something we'd want to address.
Yeah, it's not a 5-star meal, but there are federal guidelines that you have to follow, and they will keep us compliant with federal regulation and what food requirements are mandatory in these lunches and things like that. So, and I know this was of interest to me too, because I'm not sure about the rest of you, but ever since Martha sent the first and the second and the third reminder that this was going away because the federal government wasn't reimbursing this, I have had a lot of feedback from people that I've been talking to about wanting hot lunch at their school, the kids that don't go here. So I don't know if we only got 25% participation, maybe I'm hearing from a vocal minority of 25%, but I've been hearing it a lot over the summer and into this year, and even as I was getting
I
my
saw
petitions
similar
for.
chatter on Facebook about it. When
Did you?
It's
Yeah.
more than once actually when it's come
So we'll
up.
see how many people actually sign up, but I think if we could try to get, if we move forward with this and we think it's something we want to do, I don't want to do a survey. But, you know, if we can maybe work with the landmark or something, or like somehow get this a little bit more vocal, maybe we get some emails in that kind of supports it. But at the end of the day, even if we only have, I mean, we've got to provide the lunches for the free and reduced population anyway. And so if it's not costing us more money to do that, to expand it, and people
Right.
choose to pay the $4, it's no cost to the district. We're not subsidizing it for parents that can afford it, you know, quote unquote. I think it's at least worth the exploration just to see what we could do better, if the expansion makes sense and things like that. So
I guess my big concern would be, are there underlying assumptions that may not be realistic in terms of adoption? And if that's the case, is the district protected, you know, from the vendors saying after a year or so, hey, this just isn't making us any money, we're going to have to walk out of this?
I don't think we've gotten that far.
Yeah, I didn't change the number of lunches when I was kind of looking ahead. I don't know if it's going to be really popular or if we don't
You
have
have
as
to
many
understand
people want it.
this is exploratory.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
We're not.
Yeah, it's kind of early.
We have to first see what they come back with before we can really start working on.
I mean, they could come back and say, you guys spend $100,000 on equipment to make this work. Because I think we can make it work, but the details of how
Right.
that
How to make it
is and
work.
all
What
that
is that?
hasn't been vetted yet. And that's the point of this is.
I think.
Right, it's a good question to look at.
Yeah.
We've been
I think,
talking about that for
yeah,
years.
I was gonna say, this is another one of these things like full day kindergarten
Yes.
where 8 years people are like, you just can't do it, you just can't do it.
Yeah,
So
we were
let's
just
figure
told.
out, can we do
Yeah.
it? And if we
Right.
can, we should do it, you know.
And
Well,
we've had
I-
them come look at our, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
Go.
that's good, but full day kindergarten is vastly
no, I'm not
different
comparing-
from
no, I'm not comparing them.
25 to 30%.
I'm saying, I'm comparing it in terms of people saying there's no way we could ever do it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should do it. I'm saying if we do this exploratory thing and it's a cost savings to proceed in this way, of course we should do it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes,
No, yeah, early
but
on,
I
Linda
just-
and we were told it's just not possible. And like, we had questions, ideally, I'd love to get like even better than this option where it would be this amazing kind of offerings for kids, but I think this is a good starting place.
And there are those companies also, they're much more
Yes, and I
costly.
realize
Yeah,
they're more
yeah,
costly
yeah.
because it does matter what the child eats and how they learn and that they're eating. But if we're helping any child eat better with this is a good start. So.
What were you gonna say?
I hear all that, but I think where Wesley noted was there's a lot of people saying they want this,
Oh,
but if we're only seeing 25 to 30% participation, there's an issue with actual participation. So this is nowhere near as I think we should explore it. There's no question about that. But
As
I think
a
They're
cost
apples and
savings
oranges.
overall
I'm
and
not-
getting
I'm
the
not trying to-
no,
reimbursement
and I
we're
don't
missing
think
out
we will.
now,
But
I
just
definitely see
before
value
we
in
go
it.
down, lots of people want this. Lots apples and oranges.
no, I was more so saying it's great to explore it because it was a topic that we never touched. It's just great to finally explore it. That's all I'm
We
saying.
always say that we don't have room, we don't have space for that. We don't have kitchen for that, yes.
So I fully support moving forward and
This is
exploring
nice to hear there's
Right.
an
I
option,
mean,
yeah.
the thing is, there's no doubt we can do it. It's just what's it going to cost us?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if
Well,
it's
if it's
insane, then we
a
don't,
cost
you know.
savings, if it's something where we're actually getting
Right.
money
Right, we're
back.
not getting reimbursed anyway. then-
But again, we have to find this out, and that's the purpose.
We do.
of this,
Right.
so
Yeah,
we
it's,
do.
it's great that
That's-
they're exploring, I think, so.
That's the purpose of spending the
Right.
money for consulting and looking at
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
and seeing what it really does take to.
And just to keep the scope super narrow, because it is very narrow right now. We have to do this anyway. We have to find a solution for either replacing Judy specifically and keeping the status quo, or potentially expanding it, and that's what we're trying to evaluate. So if nothing else changes, this is how I interpreted our conversation, nothing else changes, we will stop losing money.
Right.
We will actually gain money purely because we're actually now able to reimburse food that we are not otherwise able to reimburse. Is kind of the big thing that really was kind of a light bulb for me.
And
Is
am
that
I
was very
understanding that
interesting.
the existing cafeteria workers besides Judy would remain? So I kind of appreciated that for those workers would remain
Yeah,
consistent.
nothing is
So
happening
we
with
weren't
personnel
just,
right now.
you know,
And Judy will remain too, because they're
letting
gonna
people
work with her.
go just because
Yeah.
we have an issue.
Right.
I really did
Right.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Was mentioned.
None, like,
Yeah.
nothing,
Yeah.
nothing beyond come in and talk to us about what you think we need
Sure.
to do to expand this is
Yeah.
happening. Just
Perfect.
very clear about
No,
that.
this
Nothing is changing.
This is valuable.
And can you go back to, we are currently providing bag lunches that are not reimbursable.
Right.
What makes those not reimbursable?
I think that they're not warm.
They're not warm.
I think it's because it's a cold lunch.
That's
right?
specific,
Jim is
okay.
right, yeah.
That's one
Yeah.
of the.
Thank you.
I think there's
Yeah.
more
Thank you.
criteria.
I
but-
was wondering
Yeah.
that too, and
Because
thank
we're
you for
very
asking.
careful about the right amount of protein and a vegetable and a fruit and all, like, I mean, they're
And that's
carefully
why I'm-
made lunches to meet the guidelines, but they are not hot lunches.
Interesting. Okay.
And from an equity perspective, which is a big thing that we've been trying to drive, is we're also very sensitive to how those lunches get delivered so that no student feels or appears to be singled out because they've got like a brown bag and everybody else has their lunchbox. It's like,
Right.
oh, why do you have, right? So by one of the potential positives, non-monetary positives of expanding a hot lunch is if everybody's in line, then you really kind of,
Yeah.
you know,
get
everybody's a
your
little bit
lunch,
more
you-
equal, so.
That
Um,
makes sense.
So again, just the narrow scope here, bringing them in to work with the current team under the current conditions to say, here's what you need to change in order to do this, here's what it's gonna cost you, all that kind of stuff. Then we can choose to move forward or not. So this is a 45-day consultation with Quest Food Management Services to figure out what we wanna do next.
Okay, great.
March, right? March 1st or?
Yes,
Yeah.
for the last,
Well, the last
March
part,
1st for the last 45 days.
It makes sense.
45 school days, yeah. Lunch days, I guess.
There's only 45 school days from March 1st to June,
Yeah.
whatever? Oh, dang, okay.
Uh-oh. Martha's making a
Since he's
face
right.
too.
That seems so short. I'm like, it's like
But
2
there
minutes.
is a
Right around
cost, I guess,
Valentine's Day, it's
associated
100th
with
day.
it.
Yeah,
So
there's a
it's,
cost.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, they're not doing it for free. The cost is $26,897 for 44. I don't know. I mean, do we have know how many? I don't know how many personnel are coming in, but they'll bring a staff in and so covering those costs and all that kind of stuff.
Mainly one consultant that
Is it just one
would
person?
move into that role in the future if this works out.
Okay.
Plus whatever expertise she needs to help us analyze what's going on.
So, Jim, there's on the back of the document, there's a ongoing consulting. Is that for future consideration?
That's a possibility in the future.
Oh,
That's-
thank you. That explains the different number.
Yeah, I think the only thing specific to us was like at the very end, let's see, I think it was like the transition plan, pages 6 and beyond, I think was the stuff specific to us.
Yeah,
Everything
there's-
else I think is their general marketing,
Yeah.
right?
It was. They've got. I was specifically looking at their breakdown of fee structure page.
The consulting fees, the last page.
Yeah,
This
that
one.
is specific to us. That's what Jim has negotiated.
Yep.
Of what that would be if we choose, if we choose to like expand this.
And that's what I was
yeah,
clarifying.
Yeah.
And
No.
just to be clear, this person would then be in place of in place of replacing Judy, who's retiring.
Right.
Correct.
So
Right.
this would, okay.
Yeah.
Instead of having a
Exactly.
full W-2 employee, so to speak, we would use
Yeah.
them to run the program.
Yep, okay.
And then that's the only change we know of right now because everything else is going to come as a result of their feedback to us on what we
Right.
should do and then what we decide to do.
No,
It
and
says
they're.
they're gonna conduct focus groups to evaluate the success, so I appreciate that part, at least they're gonna help us figure it out if it works or not.
Well, even this part about children saying like, it's
Yeah.
not that I don't like the food, it's like I don't like to wait in line.
Right,
You know,
right,
I mean,
right,
is there
right.
something that they have doing this at a lot of different schools
Uh-huh.
that they could easily, you know, they may have some, right, Joel, to your point, like, that's why we use consultants, right? They may figure out like.
That's
They know
why.
what they're
Why you
doing.
just don't do
That's
this, you know?
They've done
supposed-
this before.
That's
Yeah.
supposed to be, but they come
Yeah.
with their own biases, and
Yep.
obviously, 80% of this document is their own marketing. So
Sure.
it's the activity that Sherry noted. That's good. A good list of what they're going to do for us.
And I think the fact that they work with multiple other elementary schools
Yeah.
right within,
Right.
walking
Your
distance, so
value.
to speak, I think we have it should look and feel pretty similar, what we're doing here is to those schools, I would guess, so.
You would think similar
I would
palettes
think.
and similar.
Palettes.
Well, for what it's worth, sensitive children don't like certain things.
Yeah.
You know,
Children.
Children.
I certainly think it's worth exploring for all the reasons that were laid out, addressing some of the issues on the table already with outgoing personnel, the cost saving, the potential cost benefit, the equity concern. I know we've heard, maybe I'm talking to the 25-30% as well, because I too have heard similar, as you mentioned, like, we don't have full day kindergarten, we don't have hot lunch. So I think in that same vein, although they are different issues, but also just, providing families with more options, convenience, perhaps healthier options than they are otherwise able to pack in lunch boxes. And you're sort of limited with packing, you don't want to bring anything that has nuts in it. You're very limited to what you can pack. Yes, there's thermoses for hot lunch, but not many students are doing that. There's nowhere to really warm things up. For all those reasons, I think it's worth exploring if it's something we could offer.
Yeah. I think Dave and I both were, like, our first concern was how much extra is this going to cost?
Right.
Is that even worth moving forward? And the fact that it actually puts more money in our pocket for education and our core mission and all that kind of stuff, it definitely was worth 26,000 to figure out whether or not this is worth expanding or not. So.
Will we be voting on this at the next meeting?
I think
so.
so.
This is an action item.
Just a new business discussion right now.
Okay.
Because I know it's a new idea coming to the board.
So if there's any other questions or whatever as you guys are thinking about this over your break.
Yeah, no.
Be interesting to hear more on this.
Okay.
Okay, next item under new business is the World Strides opportunity for students in grade 8 to visit Washington, D.C.
This is also kind of an interesting board, non-board item, but I wanted to bring this forward. So we've had some parents that have asked if our 8th graders could go to Washington, D.C. It's not an unusual overnight field trip that many districts take. It's often kind of an 8th grade culminating experience. Interestingly, and perhaps not surprising, it is not really run by school districts. It is something that there are these travel agencies that provide 8th grade field trips to Washington, D.C. There are some neighboring districts that do this very trip with this same organization. This is not a board action item, and this is not a District 96 hosted trip. But because it's significant or has the opportunity or potential to be significant, it could be, a good number of 8th graders would opt to go. The actual contract is directly between the parents and the travel organization. As you can imagine, a lot of that is for liability purposes, but it's for all the things that I'm sure are already on your minds. The trip is somewhat costly. It's not something that every family probably can afford. It's something we're very sensitive to through that equity lens, that if this were a District 96 trip, it would be something that we would be scholarshiping families, et cetera. We wouldn't be doing that. It is really sort of allowing, the way I see it is, we become a communication partner, that we allow this information to funnel through to our 8th grade families, that if there were students' fundraising efforts, we could certainly consider, as it's sort of allowed in our policy, if they needed to have a sale of some item to do some fundraising, that we would probably allow it to happen. So it's just wanting to gauge sort of board comfort with that. It's something I know we've kind of thought a lot about. I think what was for me kind of a significant piece of information to add is that we have teachers on our 8th grade team that are very interested in this possibility being offered to families as an option.
This is, I don't bring a lot of the PTO, PTA stuff here because it's kind of separate, but this is something that's come up at least the last 2 meetings we've had. We meet monthly with them. So it's something that the Hauser PTO, whatever they are, has been very interested in doing and kind of drumming up. So
I guess I just have, I know you mentioned like more of the communication arm, so how would that actually work? Because in those things, that generally this group of kids from a school go. So.
Right. So, and that's what. I think of it as like almost like a Parks and Rec. I mean, it's different than that, but I think of it as like we communicate on the behalf of Parks and Recreation. Sign up for this program or this activity. We would say, World Strides is offering a trip to Washington D.C. for specific for Hauser 8th grade students. So, I think part of the charm of the trip is that you go with your classmates. We don't go. They don't. my understanding is they don't pair you up with another school district. And then they actually, and it's over a weekend, but they actually look to I think it's one school day. Right now, they're tentatively looking at May 6th through 8th. It's a weekend that's still available. So I think that involves a Monday. My understanding is that World Strides often looks to your Hauser staff to say, would you be willing to take time off of your District 96 job, be hired by World Strides for 72 hours, and chaperone the trip?
Sure.
Because so there's familiarity of a group of students, and
Right.
then there's often familiarity with the adult chaperones. I know District 95 does this, and I think almost all the students go, and almost all their staff go as chaperones.
And that was sort of like my next question.
They're 8th grade staff.
I'm assuming that for them, there's a threshold of
Yeah.
how many people, because I didn't see
Yeah,
that in here.
So I reached out to the teacher that's been sort of most facilitating of this, and I asked if there's a minimum maximum. I know there's one chaperone per 10 students, and so I don't know if 10 is a minimum.
Okay.
It sounds like roughly maybe it would be. I know sort of speculation is that maybe this first year, if it were offered, maybe it wouldn't be as popular. Families kind of need time to get it on their calendar and potentially save money for the trip, et cetera. So, but you know, one idea is wait till next year, and then I think there's also this like, this particular class has missed out on a lot of opportunities. If we could make this happen this year, that maybe it's worth offering. And again, it's offering. It's saying, so it would probably be in the Hauser happenings.
Right, okay.
A link to World Strides and the opportunity to take the trip, and then families think about it, and actually what they literally sign up for and sign off on is a contract with World Strides. It's really very much what I already shared here, like a sample itinerary. Like, do you want to do this? If so, here's, you know, what it costs. I know they share, there's a lot to the brochure that's here about different fundraising options that the children can engage in. Again, not necessarily through the school, but ways that to make the trip more affordable.
No, I mean, barring the fact that it's not an insubstantial cost, I think it's reasonable for the district to facilitate the communications part, noting that it's an outside activity and it's not at your own discretion.
Right. I guess and I know, again, I don't want to get too far ahead, but if it's kids who don't go,
I was going to ask that.
because it's going to be a day, because it's a 3-day trip.
Right.
Because I'm just looking, it's like granted the sample is $1,400. That's
right. That's
pretty,
probably what it is my guess.
Yeah, it's pretty pricey for
3 days.
Yeah.
3 days.
Yeah, when they fly, they stay in a hotel.
Right. No, I look at what I spend when I'm gone a week for work, and I don't always spend that.
Right. Oh God.
So.
It sounds reasonable, but it is expensive.
Yeah.
Right. Let's say that a lot of the teachers are gone. What happens to the other students that are there? Can we cover that? And are we okay?
Right. So and again, it's so we do this even with Bradford Woods, the other overnight trip. So I always mix up Bradford Woods, Laredo Taft. There have been a group of kids that stay behind. That's a school-sponsored overnight trip. And so April and Chris have carefully designed sort of comparable, there's nothing to do exactly like going to Washington, D.C. or even going to Bradford Woods with Laredo Taft, but they did, like for example, they did the Go Ape ropes course, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
So they want, because those trips are focused on outdoor education. They tried to create an outdoor education opportunity for the students that weren't going. And for some families, it's just they don't want their kids to go on overnight. For some, could be financial. I mean, there's many different reasons why families may opt out, and we do carefully monitor the number of families that opt out of the school-sponsored overnight trips. Just wanting to understand, again, kind of back to our start of the meeting, why, right? And what can we do? Is it about finances? Is it just about, families' preferences?
You don't want to have a barrier that can be overcome.
Right.
If you don't want to go, that's fine.
So, so if it's 10 kids, not much would change. If it ends up being 100 children, that's different, right? So we'll just have to wait and see, and just sort of be assured that I know our staff would make sure that the children that aren't on the trip are having a meaningful educational day.
Is this the same service that other local districts use?
I know it's the one that Brookfield 95.
Okay, I didn't.
For what it's
I was
worth,
gonna
my
ask that, but I
daughter
didn't wanna-
actually went to France with this same company, World Strides. It was very familiar to me when I first saw it.
I know
That was in
Brookfield does
RB.
it, and that's why I was wondering, is it the
Yeah.
same as 95?
And that's really kind of how it started. I actually think there was some teachers that had connected between the two districts, and then started looking into it. And it seems a good, again, we're not making the choice per se.
But it is a known product that colleagues have.
Yeah.
experienced
Right.
and approved of.
And that board perspective is just like, if you felt that it was not something that we should be that communication partner, then I feel like the board has, you know, the direction that you might provide in that is valuable. If you're comfortable sort of opening that door, then I think we have a 8th grade team and, you know, some families and students at Hauser that would be interested in this opportunity being offered.
I think I'm personally comfortable with it, but I would say after 1 year, like you would have to reflect for the second year, like, did this create a feeling of inequity? Did this create a feeling of a day of nothing for the students who didn't go?
Yeah.
Like, I would want to make sure we're really
Especially
monitoring
if they
that.
can afford to go. I think that just feels
Yeah.
really terrible if you're left behind.
It says in their thing that there's a lot of scholarship
Yeah, I would hope
opportunities.
they
so
should.
Yeah,
I think
maybe our
we're-
PTOs could help.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think we should
that-
really make sure we're looking into
Yeah.
whoever's running this. You know,
I mean, I understand it's optional. It's just it can be so polarizing.
yeah,
Right.
for sure.
And it's, you know, and have thought about all these things, and have hesitated around all these same things because, for example, if the district decides that children should all have the T-shirt or they can't afford the cap, like, we're not gonna have children go without. For the district to step in and support $1,400 per person to go
That's
out,
a lot of
like,
money.
you can't do
Right.
that, right? I mean,
No.
it's, you know, so, yeah, so it's it's an interesting one, for all the reasons that you're pointing out, and I appreciate that.
Right. I mean, I'm fine. I sort of agree. I completely agree with Linda. Like, we need to evaluate it if we open it up.
Yeah.
I'm fine opening it up. I guess the one question I do have though is that one day the kids are going to miss. How is that considered excused absent? Unexcused? I mean, how is that going?
It would be
learn from press that there's now an excused absence for civic.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Civic.
I wonder if it's
Education.
linked because of these
I
kinds of trips.
I
right?
feel
Now that
it's
I
gotta
think-
be
yeah.
right. There's
Right?
actually in policy now.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It is an educational experience.
Well,
It'd be kind of the same as
But I don't know. I didn't mean to cut you
Right,
off.
no, I think that's a very good point, Stephanie, yeah.
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 Yeah, it'd be excused, it
Right.
would be a school, you know.
Right. I mean, ironically, we use World Strides at Chicago Booth does the random
Oh,
walks. So
okay.
your son participated. But I know there's value in these experiences, and I do like the idea of students being able to, you know, explore American history firsthand, right? And of course, form those connections and bonds. And I did look, I know it's not through the lens of our policy, but when I think about the school sanctioned field trips and look at the policy and like the lens through which we would approve certain things, like looking at educational value, you know, student safety, etc. I guess my concern, and it seems like it's echoed among the board, is just kind of, I'm a little nervous about kind of privatizing field trips under this sort of like for-profit company and just ensuring that the trip's accessible to students regardless of even like ability and of course financial difficulties, so regardless of their place on the economic spectrum. And I saw that there's some efforts for fundraising, scholarship, but you've already said like this is not school sanctioned, so we would not be providing, you know,
Right.
financial aid ourselves to families that demonstrate need. So I struggle with that, and similarly, I don't know what role other staff like nurses would need to play, or those with 504 IEP plans, like physical and intellectual abilities. Like everybody who wants to go should be able to go, and just like accommodating students with different abilities and accommodations here to ensure that they have like an inclusive trip. So I just kind of think about all that, and yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle. I didn't fully love the itinerary. I don't personally love the idea of, you know, Mount Vernon, plantations where people were enslaved. I understand this is all part of American history, but some of that is just kind of also troubling. And I would certainly hope that the trip, you know, is highlighting aspects and obviously not glorifying those times in our history, but those are all the things that run through my head when I think about this trip. But as a communication,
Right.
like I'm
Yeah.
probably more
Right,
okay
and that's
with
why I go,
it
it's not a school
than
sponsored trip
not.
for all, like, there are so many complexities, that's why school
But
districts
if it was a
don't
school
take this
sponsor, I
on.
probably would have more opinions on it.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think we'd be coming forward.
No,
with
I was just gonna
requests.
say,
Yeah, I don't think
I
we.
mean, I can understand your
Yeah.
discomfort, but I guess the thing is, while the attorney might be like what we would do, but we have to learn about these things because those who don't know history are going to be doomed to repeat it.
I
And
get
so
that.
I doubt they're going to be idolizing.
Well, I mean, these things are, you know, Mount Vernon is run in cooperation with the National Park Service,
Right.
so it's my understanding years ago, they've taken an approach to I don't know if curriculum is the right term, but they've taken an approach to the learning that's available there to include that balance and include all sides of the story.
I think it's true.
You had said earlier that Brookfield, their 8th grade class, almost everybody went. I don't know it, because this is just a third party vendor. I don't really know how this would happen, but like, how did they get that to happen?
Right.
Like, is the fundraising options, the scholarship options, really that good, or is this something that's kind of just been embedded in their culture and people are been raising money, like doing school, bake sales, and like, how did they get to that? Because that seems really impressive, and I'm just like,
That's
is it?
Yeah.
I would love to just if.
I know the feedback I had is they've been doing it forever.
That's it.
And
I
you
know
know,
they
so
have.
that idea that it's very ingrained that you start saving up money for your 8th grader to potentially go on this trip, maybe, and that's one of the hesitancies around offering it this year is families are not going to have a lot of time
Lead
to sort of
time.
ramp up and be ready. We thought about, so like, do we wait and start to offer it next year and again, not we, but to communicate on World Stride's behalf that this is an opportunity.
And you bring up a good point there. Maybe we should wait a year, because not do it, obviously not do it this year, but maybe do it in the 23-24.
Something that occurred to me when I first heard of this, though, I understand fully there would be a lot of people who would not be able to get on board with this, but I do feel for kids in 8th grade this year, and that they've gone through junior high in a way no other class has gone through it before. They've gone through it. They've started junior high in the pandemic. They're ending it in the tail end of this. If it were my kid, if I had a kid in this grade, absolutely, I'd be banging the table and say, let's do this. We have staff who want to support it, staff who want to go along with this trip. There's a ton of educational opportunities as a part of this itinerary. Yes, I understand that not everyone would be available or potentially could participate in this. But that said, we're kind of, the first year is kind of the beta test anyway. So if we have a smaller amount of folks attending that first year, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's allowing us to, or again, not us, but allowing this trip to everyone to figure out things a little bit better on how to do it better the next year.
And I think we're just a communication method, so whether we want to communicate or help support communicate it or not, I think it's might happen. Like, we don't have control over it happening or not. I think the PTA wants to, like you said, like the Hauser happenings or whatever, like if they choose to market it to families, we don't have to participate, but it feels like there's been a big push, because pre-pandemic we did that. I mean, my understanding is we did do this kind of forever, and then we lost sight of it or something. I don't know.
No, I don't think it's ever.
No,
well,
was it we never
I've
done
never
it? I was
known of a
thinking-
Washington.
Not
I mean,
since I've been here.
I'm not aware of us doing
But-
it.
but-
it would have been a really long time ago, because I don't know where, I don't
do, like,
hear of
career
any of it
advance.
sitting in our history, even for teachers that have been here.
Yeah,
We've
career
been here
advance.
20,
They do
25
it.
years. I don't think they'd say, oh, we used to. I would.
And let's get, like, as you mentioned, from March to the end of the school year, there's only 45 days.
That's true.
So, I mean, I was sort of under the impression that it wasn't going to be this year, it was going to be next year.
Right.
I just feel, I mean, I think this is something we should look into, but I don't know doing it this year, because it's going to be very rushed to get everything, to do it this year.
Well,
think
I'm sorry,
we're
just,
doing anything.
yeah, exactly.
Right, we're
All
not
we're
doing
doing is
anything, but-
communicating it.
The only thing we're not doing that could feel rushed is we're not giving families much advance notice.
Right.
So families that wanted to get this on their calendar and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And
Yeah.
if it's gonna, I mean, it just seems like, and I guess I'm also sort of looking at the equity thing, is that we're definitely not gonna have a lot of people who can come up with $1,400.
Unless this again, we don't know enough
And then
about
the
their
fundraising too,
fundraising.
it's like, are you gonna be able to even fundraise $1,400?
Well, it sounds like from what I'm hearing from Wesley that, again, this is not really our call. This is a trip
Well,
that's
it's our
happening
call.
external.
Right,
it's
it's
our call whether or not we
wanna
publicize it.
Right, we publicize it.
You'd want to be okay with it. right, it's not a formal approval, but if
Right.
you're not okay with it, because we will be as clear as we possibly can. People will think this is a District 96
Right,
trip.
exactly.
No,
Right.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the part we should be concerned about, is
Yeah.
they will assume to some degree that we're attaching our name to it, but I think the PTA has been pretty vocal, they want to push this. And I think they want our help communicating it and getting it out there, just as another avenue.
So-
But I
so-
think they're gonna do it whether we participate or not.
So-
That's my sense, but I don't know, Martha, if you have a different,
So is the PPA wanting to do it this year?
I think so. That's what I walked away from the
Yes,
last two meetings
yes.
with.
That was the request, by how many parents, but, some parents saying, we should do this, why would it be so hard? And it's all the things you just talked about here tonight.
And I think you see, we canceled our meeting because of break, right? So maybe you could communicate that to the PTO presidents or whatever. 'Cause I don't think, we're not meeting next week, right? Because we're on break.
No, right.
Yeah.
Communicate what part?
Like just some of the
Oh,
concerns we
yeah,
have. If
yeah.
we choose not to go forward with
Yeah.
it, I think we just owe a rationale.
Yeah.
Or even if we do participate in it, I think we should just present our concerns that probably the PTA is not thinking about, right? So.
And I think, to this idea of it being sort of a trip that we then evaluate, right? And if we feel that it wasn't a great experience, or that there was a sense that children really felt left out, we could also say, we are no longer going to be a communication partner with
Yeah.
you. I mean, and we would explain that to families. We didn't feel it was in our students' best interest to offer this even as a communication partner. So it's, I appreciate all the challenges, and I will assure you that they are all ones that I have also thought about. And again, for me, what sort of, even to bring it to all of you, it was the teacher interest. If the teachers think that from a historical, social studies perspective, that this is something that they would value, even going as the paid chaperones to support a group of students, as many kids as could possibly go, I don't want to say that surprised me, but that was meaningful to me.
What do you need from us tonight?
I need to know if you object. I think I need to know if there's strong objection.
Do you need to know that tonight?
No, we could decide that in January. I mean, what I hear is the hesitancy, but I also hear the support. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
there's
Do we
both
need
in
to,
the room.
do we need to kind of give you a vote per se tonight, or can we think on it and let you know?
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be a vote. And
Right.
I realize
I mean,
I'm presenting this awkwardly also, that this is not board action. It specifically should not be board action.
Yeah.
Because
Put some
it's not
direction on
district-
supporting
yeah,
it
some
or
direction,
not is-
right.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Which means we could individually communicate
Yeah.
with you after this,
Yeah.
whether we want
Yeah.
to move forward or not. We
Yeah.
don't have to make it an official
Yeah.
board item, but I appreciate bringing it to the table and having a public
I
discussion
wouldn't want
about it.
it to feel like, because it will feel like District 96 is hosting a trip to Washington DC,
Right.
and the board was unaware. Like that, I would never want that
Yeah.
scenario to be the case. So I appreciate the questions, I appreciate the concerns, and I appreciate some of the enthusiasm too. I think all of the above are part of it.
I appreciate the concerns. I think I'm okay with it. If I change my mind, I'll let you know.
Okay, okay,
I feel the same way.
okay.
With some hesitancy, but
Yeah.
that would have to be evaluated.
Yeah, how'd you word strong objection? Is
Yeah,
that what you
that's
yeah.
it.
I don't know that
Objection,
mine
okay.
rises to a level
Yeah.
of strong objections, just some of the same hesitancies that
Concerns.
the board and concerns the board
Yeah,
has discussed already.
yeah.
I have moderate objections to this year, but not strong.
Is anybody not sure?
Strongly agree,
Anybody
agree,
not sure?
disagree.
Are you
Yeah.
not
Like
sure?
this survey.
Yeah, right.
But
I should give you a 5-point scale.
yeah, but I definitely think we should communicate this next year,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I'm okay
I have
with.
strong support for next year.
I'm okay with supporting it. I think part of me would request, I personally would request that we tell them our concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna do what they wanna do, but I do think they should hear our
Yeah.
concerns.
And even exploring how have District 95 students, for example, participate in the fund.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
on the brochure, they make it look like it's pretty easy to raise funds.
Right,
but
right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
And I will say, just since I brought the PTA into it, we do talk a lot about equity issues at all the schools in those meetings, and different activities and fundraisers and stuff that they want to do. We do share those. Martha and I talk through that. How are you going to make it? And it is well aware by all of the PTA organizations. So.
And I would say that the teaching team that feels enthused about it is also, like, everybody has sort of stepped carefully around.
Right.
That's why it's not this enthusiastic,
Right.
110% endorsements. Like,
I'm sure our hesitancies are felt by
yes.
everybody. So.
Just for my own knowledge, what are the school-sponsored ones? Like, there's a Springfield for
Springfield for
like
7th
day,
grade,
that's
and
just
there's
the day, right?
so, and all of it's fallen by the
Laredo
wayside
Taft
because of
is
pandemic.
6th grade.
Yeah, so 6th grade Laredo Taft, which is an outdoor ed experience. It isn't overnight,
One
and it's
night.
really meant to be done in the fall of 6th grade when the 5th graders all come together from their 4 different schools, and it's meant to have a lot of sort of social connection, outdoor ed, hands-on learning. That has been not happened since the pandemic. 7th grade trip to Springfield is a single day. It's not an overnight. It's like early morning on the bus
Till
until the
late at night,
evening.
yeah.
One full day. And then 8th grade has been Bradford Woods, which is a camp in Indiana, which, I mean, April and Chris have shared they haven't really been able to make contact with, like, whether their program went underground, I mean, just not underground, went under during the pandemic.
They burrowed.
So, yeah, so these things are still kind of in a holding pattern. Laredo Taft, I know, is one that the 6th grade team very much wants to get back on the books. Teachers love that. Teachers who were children in this district love, like, that is some of the, like, you're nodding, like your own kids,
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
whatever.
My daughter
kids
loved
love
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
My kids did as well.
Yeah.
Although I'm so glad they're the chaperones.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not a teacher. Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I was going to say on this, I'm all in favor of it as long as I don't have to be a chaperone.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, that brings us back to public comment. Is there any additional public comment? Okay. Which brings us to future meeting dates. On January 4th, 2023, Committee of the Whole meeting is canceled. Everybody give a disingenuous, oh, that's terrible. January 18th is the regular business meeting, 7 p.m. in the Hauser Learning Resource Center. Board will enter into closed session at 6:15 p.m. if necessary, and return to open session at 7 p.m. February 1st, 2023 is Committee of the Whole meeting, 7 p.m. in the multipurpose room at Hollywood Elementary School. February 15th, 2023, regular business meeting at 7 p.m. in the Hauser Learning Resource Center. Board will enter into closed session at 6:15 p.m. if necessary, and return to open session at 7 p.m. And if there is nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
Oh.